I'm like a Staples department store.
Nine o'clock, we'll start the meeting. Happy New Year, everybody. If you'd stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the final agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Public comment.
I have a request from Bill Veach, but I believe that he wants to speak for the advisory committees. I have no other requests.
Is there any other public comment? Public comment is closed. Local achievements and recognitions. Bruce?
I just would comment on the fireworks at New Year's Eve. They did a fine job. I think it was like 15 minutes, so they did it within the money that they had, I guess, and seemed to go off well.
Joanne?
I just want to remind the community that the Fort Myers Beach Art Association has an art bazaar today from 9 to 3, and there's all kinds of demonstrations of a variety of different art techniques, all for free, and stop by on Sterling, or I'm sorry, on Denora. And then the Women's Club has their 55th anniversary tomorrow. That's at the Women's Club on Sterling. That's from 6 to 9, and there's refreshments free for all. Join the celebration. And I know there's something at the Mound House next Thursday. Were you going to talk about that, Anita, or shall I?
You can go ahead.
The Mound House is also having the history of the Mound House with some speakers, and that will be Thursday, January 17th, and that one's going to be held at the Women's Club on Sterling.
At 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock.
Anita?
Just to wish everybody a very happy new year. I hope it's a healthy and happy one for you. To congratulate all of our public service employees for the well-being of everybody over the New Year's Eve celebration. And I don't know if it was my imagination, the fireworks seemed to be a little more controlled. I, like others, have a dog that freaks out during the fireworks. Seemed to be a little better this year. So that was appreciated, and that's all I have.
Dennis?
I will, on the fireworks thing, this is probably the quietest year I've ever had from my house with the extra fireworks going off. So I appreciate those that refrain from doing it. That's it.
May I say one more thing? Just because they brought the topic up and I forgot. I want to say thank you to Publix. I went into Publix and they had a giant fireworks display for sale. And I said, you know that they're not legal on the island, personal fireworks. And he said, I'll take it down immediately. And he did. And I think they should be recognized
Absolutely.
for that.
Definitely.
Yes.
So
Good
I
for
forgot,
them.
I forgot to say that. Thank you very much to Publix.
Okay, and
You know,
just,
could I just ask, could we send them a letter?
Yeah.
I'll send them a note.
That would be nice.
I wasn't here for fireworks, but my best friend Summer called me, who is probably the biggest complainer about them, and she said it was the quietest fireworks were only one time before the main show and hardly anything after. So kudos to the Sheriff's Department and to base for taking care of that, and Roger for the sign you put at the foot of the bridge. So whatever you did, it's the first time in our history that we've been able to keep it calm. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. We're working very hard on that
I know
issue
you are, and
'cause
so is
it's-
the sheriff, and I
Yeah,
appreciate both of
so
you.
appreciate everyone's kind words.
And I also want to congratulate our new governor, DeSantis, who has been inaugurated, the governor of Florida, and he is in Bonita today, going to be talking about water quality, and I'm missing it because we have a meeting. But if that's all, we'll go to advisory committee items and reports. Bill Veach.
Hi there, Bill Veach, Chair of the Marine Resources Task Force. Okay, so The first thing is about the reusable bag program. We had a bit of a kerfuffle, if you will, that the protocols for the town prohibits them from paying for the bags the way we had sourced them. They're not allowed to wire money and not allowed to use an outside the U.S. source. So we were kind of thrown back into finding, you call them a domestic supplier, but basically they're importing the bags and then printing them here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening. Well, I'll comment on that in just a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
There's, there's a lot of other timing issues coming up. Currently, there's a 16% tariff on textiles from China. It's going up to 30 in March. And if we're ordering directly from the factory, we probably miss the boat because apparently China takes 20 days off for the Chinese New Year and all the factories close. So anyway, I went through and to pick up the pieces, I went through and I did find some people in the U.S. who had them. The bottom line, though, is for our $10,000 budget, instead of 5,000 bags, we're talking about half that. What our plan is, and if we're sourcing the, because this is the hiccup is that we're using government funds, right? Taxpayer money. And so that's where all these protocols come in. The whole way it's quoted, the whole, how you have to pay, all that. If we get money from sponsors and don't go through the town, then we have more options of what we can do. So for the second phase of this, if we do get your approval to go through and do a shorter run of these bags for the budget, for the second one, we may even try to bypass the town completely for the financial aspect of the second set and try to find a nonprofit that can do that and work through them. So anyway, my first item is I want to know if the council is okay if we gift them fewer bags for the budget.
Is that what you're asking for?
That's what we're asking, yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Okay, because
Bill, I hate that idea, and I'm gonna tell you what the ridiculous snag in this is. So Joanne, you were in the store the other day. I carry this line of made in Italy clothing. The fact of the matter is it's really made in China. But there are 30,000 Chinese people who have immigrated to this small town in Italy, and they bring the goods with one seam unsewn to this small town in Italy. They sew it in Italy, and then it gets a made in Italy tag on it, and we import it from Italy instead of from China. And so there is a roundabout way that these things are happening now because of these tariffs and for other reasons. I'm just wondering if there isn't a roundabout way to find these bags. I hate not to have 5,000 bags on the streets, but I also don't want to put any kind of delays in the system either. But, if the majority of council says, go ahead, have you found another supplier, Bill? The made in USA, even though it's actually a Chinese product.
yeah, I guess it's
supplier.
paid in the USA is probably more the.
That is actually absolutely it.
There's lots. There are, and they vary quite a bit. But I did find someone has something similar, and their whole charge thing. They charge as much for the printing as we were paying for the whole bags before. So I have. That's where I think one's a little smaller than the one we have spec. Instead of being able to spec out exactly what we want, you have to go with the closest thing they have offer.
And is it possible maybe to purchase the bag and have the bags printed here and end up with a lesser cost product?
Maybe. Something I haven't really looked at. This all happened in the last
Yeah, I know.
5 days.
Bill, is this something you can work with Roger on and find out, I think that we've given Murph the money to do these bags, and so whatever, we trust you to, be fiscally responsible with the money.
Yeah. Well, it's still has to go through the process of the town. They want to do their bids and make their selection. Murph really doesn't buy anything, and we're not going to touch any money.
Right, but Roger is very resourceful, and I think if you sit down with him, you guys could probably figure out, because we've already approved the money for the bags.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm asking is you approved the money with the expectation of getting 5,000 bags.
Right.
So, but I wouldn't mind sitting down with you, Nita, because this is kind of your business.
You let me know.
And
You
show
let
you
me
what
know.
we've been doing.
I just came back from a trade show, and all of this China stuff is so on topic with so many vendors because so much of the stuff is resourced from China, and the Chinese are looking for ways to circumvent the process to get it here, and ultimately get it here for less.
Yeah.
So, Bill, have you tried to talk to business owners on the island to see if they'll switch to non-plastic bags voluntarily? I know that we talked about that before, and I guess it's just cheaper for them to use plastic.
You know, the word's getting out through I think some of the publicity we're doing. I mean, there are some people that I've talked to. You know, what we could really use, and maybe I'll bring this up with Merv, is a resource on how to be green. Because I know I talked to an owner of the Skies down here, and she was trying really hard to do away with styrofoam, to do away with a lot of the plasticky stuff, and just had a really hard time doing it. Said either the cost was prohibitive or they just didn't hold up. You know, you can't put soup in a cardboard cup. It just doesn't last very long. So, you know, there are some challenges. Some people are doing it, but then every business is different about what they're providing and how, and you know, some places, like, I think we're kind of waiting on this bag program to send a letter to Publix here to get them to not offer plastic bags. But I've also heard the 7-Eleven, they're a real hard sell because they use the plastic bags they give away as a metric on how busy the branch is. So. All right, well then I'll work on more about the individual sourcings that's coming up, and I think what we'll probably do is kind of work it backwards. So whatever bag we end up getting for this first one, we will make that the specification for a bag if we're going to do a custom run on them.
Thanks.
Okay, second item, the town asked us to look into ADA beach accesses, and we've been kind of dancing around a little bit, but I think we understand what you want. The question we have is the town, if it works out, would the town be willing to work into like a, because you know the idea is to come up with beach wheelchairs and stage them at different locations on the beach, and then when someone wants one, base will go and, you know, take whatever their security deposit would be and let them use it and then, you know, put it back. Another idea we had is there are places on the beach that rent these kind of wheelchairs, is to work up some kind of public-private partnership where maybe the town offers a discount to renting the wheelchairs from the businesses that are already doing it instead of essentially being in competition with them.
Have you reached out to Sanibel because they do this?
Yeah, I did years ago when this came up, that Billy's Beach Bikes, I think it is, that they provide them as a service
Right.
to people.
Can't we do that here?
Most big cities do. Miami, I've done a bunch of research. Most cities, this is exactly what they do, so.
Right. But this is this is not part of the town. This is a private business that does this as a service for people. I think they do it for free.
I understood when I brought this up a while back that there were some of the businesses on the beach that provided wheelchairs.
There are.
Yeah. The place down there in Sea Grape, was it Rental Things or?
Yep.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I think they do it. I've seen their things out. And one of our members is going to talk to them, find out what the demand is and what they're willing to do to work with the town. You know, personally, I find it better for the town to, I understand why you want to source these out and have them very visible and make them known that these are there for you. But the other part is if there's already a business doing it, then it really kind of will kill their business. If it's a big part of their business, it's an issue.
So in Sanibel, that private business does it for free, correct?
That's my vague recollection.
Yeah.
This is like 5 years ago, and I barely remember what I had for breakfast.
It seems like what you're asking, though, is are you guys on track? And I would say, yes, you're on track, researching this and bringing forward some options that work for our island and researching what the other communities are doing. Yes, to me, that's on track.
Okay, then we'll,
Bill, I would especially like to know, because I recently had an email about this, and the woman who emailed me was accustomed to, she herself was handicapped, she was accustomed to going directly to the municipality for that service. So I'd be interested to know what other municipalities are doing specifically, not what other businesses are doing so much. But what are the municipalities doing? I mean, for example, your example of Base will go there and unlock it and take your credit card or whatever, that would be a heck of a lot easier just to transpire right here.
And
be out of town hall.
Yeah,
Yeah, the one difference is it's a 7-mile wide beach. And-
that's true, but maybe then Base takes the chair wherever it's needed. I don't know. I don't know. I'd just like to
hours
know
to
what
get
other
there.
cities are doing with it.
Sanibel's bigger, and there's only one place doing it there, and it works.
And Miami Beach had 2, I think, when I talked to them.
And another point, too, is when you go to the Lee County website, they talk about it in their parks, and we have Lynn Hall and Bowditch here that they say are accessible, and so we should be researching what Lee County will provide at Bowditch and Lynn Hall.
And Crescent Beach?
Great point.
And Crescent Beach. There's 3 parks that Lee County's ADA policy should be in effect for, that they should be doing.
And don't forget, underneath the South End Bridge is owned by Lee County, and that's a park too.
Okay, so pursue that.
Okay. The next thing is, sorry, I have kind of a long list of things here. Well, 4, maybe not that long. The lot that the town is acquiring or may have already acquired, that's in Bay Oaks, what Murph wants to do is we want to conduct a public experiment of non-glyphosate weed killers. You guys are soon to be proud owners of a weed-filled lot. So we'd like your permission to set up an experiment there, a blind study, if you will, where we're going to stake off some areas and try different non-glyphosate, homemade, or various type of weed killers, and see how they do.
Great.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Town Attorney. Is that something that we can do? Just
Sure,
no problem with that?
no problem.
I'd
Roger?
also,
If you,
Roger, is any issue with us just giving him the okay? Or does he want him to come in
No,
and
no,
work with
just, we
you,
just,
or-
yeah, we just need a little coordination because I think what we're going to definitely want to put up a sign that discourages people from attempting to walk through that while this is going on. But other than that, I think it's fine.
So I think the council's saying, work with Roger and go ahead.
Yeah, and I've already been in conversations with Austin, because the town has their non-glyphosate formula that, and we want to coordinate with Public Works too, because, I assume there's going to be mowing or something going on there.
Yeah, go ahead.
also, the Art Association is willing to have their property used because they
I'm
have-
willing to have my
they
house used.
Just to let you know, they have a large piece of property, and they mentioned that that's fine, too.
Okay.
Thanks for doing that, Bill.
Oh, that stuff is fun. And the last, now, some time ago, we made recommendations for the fertilizer and the glyphosate ban.
Yes.
We know that, this council, we've appreciated the way you guys have worked with us and what you've done. You're a very, very productive council, and we would encourage you to try to get this ordinance through before the election.
I've been trying to get the fertilizer. I don't know why the council, some of us decided to put them together. I mean, we're ready for the fertilizer, right?
The fertilizer is actually pretty easy because this reduces the size of the
Right,
ordinance.
so that, I wanted to bring that before us, but I think, Anita, you wanted to come together. If the fertilizer is ready, I'd say give it to us. And if-
Okay, well, the town is working on it. They're dotting their i's and crossing their
What
t's.
do I want to come together?
When we talked about the fertilizer and say the word
Glyphosate.
glyphosate, you had said, I said, let's do the fertilizer if it's ready, and you said, I'd rather have them done together.
Well, it's a unified kind of thing. Are you saying it's separate, Bill?
Yeah, actually, it is separate because
Okay.
the glyphosate would be well, everything has their exceptions, but they have different exceptions. One possible thing with the glyphosate is, allows it, I think the wording was it can be used in emergency circumstances. Maybe it's okay to use glyphosate to try to control certain invasives that are very difficult to control because, there's a cost benefit there. But the fertilizer is different kind of rules of what the exceptions are,
Sure.
And it's already there, we're just tweaking it to make it,
right?
so,
We're ready?
we're ready.
Okay, well then, working with the town that if you can, and I really look forward to a hearty debate about it because it's not necessarily a slam dunk for some people. Because, some people, just the sniff of a government-led inconvenience is like trampling the Constitution. So I think it's really good to have a conversation so people know why and what the benefits are.
Go back and look at pictures from this past summer, that's why.
Yeah.
Any problem with that, Roger?
Well, I just wanted to mention that the aspirational aspects of these types of ordinances are very well supported. And then you get into the ticklish aspect of it, which is how do you enforce it? I think as we delve into the detail of this, we have to have realistic expectations on what can be enforced and how it can be enforced versus the aspirational global objective of trying to protect our waters and planet.
And it's a step, though, toward that aspiration and toward educating the public of what they ought to be doing. And then it's a personal responsibility for all of us to be environmentally oriented. So I'd say let's aspire. Let's aspire.
I couldn't comment till I see what the details are. I guess I missed that meeting, but I'm really concerned that we have scientific evidence of what we're trying to do and not just something we wish pennies from heaven would fall down.
There's actually the fertilizer ordinance that you sent us that you guys had worked on. Maybe Roger, you can send Bruce a copy if he doesn't remember. Okay.
Yeah, well, what we can do is we'll distribute the latest version that we're working off of as a just informational draft to council electronically, just so you have it before it appears on your agenda. And so, you won't be getting it and have only a 5 or 6 day window to look at it.
And as far as the aspirations too, we really think that you're probably never going to be able to keep anybody from going into Home Depot and getting fertilizer and spraying it on their grass. But most of the island properties are done by some kind of lawn service company. And it's just a matter of letting them know what they can and cannot do. And that's both, you see the lawn service companies spraying Roundup all over the rocks, and you see them spraying lawns. So they're really the target, I think, for enforcement. But like the straw band, the whole, what we actually put in our water off our island probably isn't going to make nearly as much of a difference as what's coming down the river. So like the straw band, if this gets passed, then I will personally go to different towns to their meetings and public comment and try to encourage other towns like Cape Coral and things that have a lot more waterfront areas to enact a similar ban and see if we can't leverage this into something greater than just the beach.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for all your time you put into this stuff.
Okay, the next on the agenda is a proclamation, Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. Declared January 2019 as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. And we have Jean Corderas and Judy Langley. Michelle, would you mind reading the proclamation, please?
I'd be happy to. Whereas January 2019 has been designated as National Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month by the federal government, and whereas the Lee County Sheriff's Office and community organizations founded one of the first human trafficking task forces in the country in 2005, which continues to be actively involved in the fight against modern-day slavery through the U.S. Attorney's Southwest Florida Human Trafficking Task Force. And whereas the state of Florida is recognized as one of 3 states with the highest incidence of human trafficking, and also one of the states which are doing the most to combat this crime in terms of legislation and victims treated. And whereas federal, state, and local law enforcement and local organizations such as the Southwest Florida Human Trafficking Task Force, Abuse Counseling Treatment, Catholic Charities, Human Trafficking Awareness Partnerships, Children's Advocacy Center, Florida Gulf Coast University, Hodges University, and Lee Health are working collaboratively to build awareness through community and educational events and trainings, prevention programs for youth, businesses, and medical facilities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, does hereby designate January 2019 as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month, given under my hand and the seal of the Office of the Mayor this 10th day of January 2019, Tracy Gore, Mayor.
I'm Judy Langley. Please pull the microphone. I'm sorry, yeah. I'm Judy Langley. I'm on the board of Human Trafficking Awareness Partnerships. This is Jean Cordova, who's just joined us. And our organization directs its efforts towards educating children between 8 and about 17 to the reality of human trafficking in this area. We do it through art projects. And human trafficking has evolved over the past 15 years of general awareness from a crime in which hapless girls from places like Guatemala signed up for what they thought were nanny-type positions and came over here and ended up in the sex trade. Unfortunately, now, through social media, human trafficking is a neighborhood event. Human trafficking can be going on in your home with your kids while you're sitting right next to them through social media. So our efforts are directed towards making kids aware that just because someone wants to be a friend or is someone who's offering them gifts or other attention, they may not be as transparent as a 13 or 14-year-old kid thinks they are. And human trafficking is also not a crime where children are snatched off the street and put into sex slavery. They're groomed. And it's a process that takes quite a while and can seem to start in a very innocuous fashion. And it happens at places like the Coconut Point Mall, where people watch groups of kids, look for the children who are on the periphery, and begin to befriend them. It's a process that takes a while, as long as necessary, until that child or young adult finds themselves in a position they cannot extract themselves from. And human trafficking is defined as force, coercion, and other situations, and it can also be labor. It's not strictly sexual, where someone becomes victimized by someone else and they're in a position from which they cannot extract themselves. We can't save all of these people individually. What our efforts at HTAP are is teaching children how to keep themselves safe from trafficking. And we did a project over here for a specialized school, AMI.
That's over on.
Yeah,
Different
and
Island.
we did an hour-and-a-half orientation session for the kids there. It was mostly high school-age boys. There were a few girls there. And we've been invited back to do an art project, which we will definitely do. But we just want everyone to be aware that human trafficking now through social media can very easily be in your home with a child you're sitting next to, and you'd be completely unaware of what's going on. So thank you for the recognition, and please feel free to ask us any questions you would like to.
No
exactly
questions,
right.
just thank you for
All
your
right, and-
dedicated work
and
in this
thank you
area.
for the
Thank you.
recognition.
If you'd come up, I will give you the proclamation. Thank you, guys.
This is an important topic. Shall we get a
Yeah,
picture?
yes, yes.
Everybody? Thank you.
You would have had a
Thank you so
one and
much.
a two and
Thank you
a.
very much for your hard work. We did miss the minutes.
Sorry?
The minutes.
Mine got changed. Didn't you guys get the new updated
No, I
agenda?
guess I didn't,
So
sorry.
the new updated agenda had the proclamation first and approval of
Sorry.
minutes. That's why I'm the mayor. So next is approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve,
Second?
and then I have one change,
Okay.
and that would be on page 11.
A, B, or C?
It's just page 11 in the packet, so it's for Thursday, it'd be B, Thursday, December 6th.
Okay.
It's just at the top, Vice Mayor Shamp supported a 0.5 increase from year to year, which would imply 50% or something. That was actually 5%.
That's right.
That's all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda, consent agenda, proclamation Drug House Odyssey.
Motion to approve.
Second by Dennis Bobeck. All in favor?
Aye.
Michelle, I've signed this for you. Next is the public hearing, 105 Albatross Street, Macer Pool setback variance. I'm going to open up the hearing. Town Attorney, has there been sufficient public affidavit of publication?
Yes, there is, and at this time, obviously, it'd be appropriate to swear in any witnesses that are going to give testimony here this afternoon.
Sir?
Is there anyone in the audience?
Anybody going to give testimony?
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth here this morning? Witness has been sworn. Be appropriate also at this time to disclose any ex parte communications you may have had.
Ex parte communication, Anita?
None.
Dennis? None for me. Joanne?
None.
Bruce?
None.
Okay.
Good morning, Sarah.
And have the applicant, is the applicant here?
The owner is here, the applicant isn't here.
Are you
That's
going to
why
present for them?
I was
Okay.
just going to present the case,
All right.
and then if you have any additional questions,
Okay.
the owner is here, he should be able to answer
Thanks,
most
Sarah.
of the questions, yes. The applicant, White Aluminum, is seeking a setback variance on behalf of the owner of 105 Albatross, Mr. Macer. The variance request is for the residential pool and screen enclosure 5-foot rear property setback line found in section 34-1174D1A. They would like to allow a pool and screen enclosure 1.97 feet from the rear property line. The pool enclosure was damaged by Irma and was previously located in that location. The subject parcel's rear property line is not aligned with the seawall. At the corner closest to the property line, the screen enclosure is 1.97 feet from the property line and 5.29 feet from the seawall. The screen enclosure meets the 5-foot required setback from the seawall without a variance. At the December 11th, 2018 meeting, the LPA recommended approval of the request.
Anybody have any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, this is a variance to replace something that was damaged?
Yes, that's correct.
I don't understand that. I guess I never thought about having to get a variance to do a repair. Because it was non-conforming to start with?
Yes, it was non-conforming, and these previously, I believe, were done by an administrative variance, but currently we're not doing administrative variances. All of them are running through the public process.
I had a similar question because it allows you guys, if it's an irregularly shaped lot, and that's the reason why it's an exceptional, or not exceptional, but it's why it's allowed. Normally in the code, it says if it's irregular shaped lot, that staff can do it. But I mean, it is what it is. We're here today, so I don't have any questions. I'm okay with it.
Could I just ask another question, Sarah? So if the property owner, if it were an administrative variance, what is the cost to the property owner? The same as if it were a public hearing?
I couldn't tell you. I can look that up after the meeting.
Yeah,
I'm not aware.
Something like this, it seems burdensome for the property owner to have to come through this process for something that was pre-existing. It seems really burdensome.
Well, on the other hand, though, I think that one of the reasons that they're bringing these forward is because back in 2014, the whole elevated setback issue too close to the canal, I mean, that was what cost us.
I understand that, but it's
$250,000,
2019
so-
now, and to me, it seems extremely burdensome for a property owner to have to pay to come through the variance process for something that was pre-existing and evidently had existed for quite some time and was removed due to no fault of his own by Hurricane Irma. Seems very cumbersome to me.
Was the whole thing knocked down, or is this just a repairing the screening?
I believe it was just damaged. I don't think it was completely
So
destroyed.
it's not a replacement, it's just a repair.
I think they have to replace structural components.
So that's probably why it's here. It's because
Yeah,
if
typically when somebody's replacing a structural component, that's when it has to come into compliance.
it's closer than 5 feet from the canal, which caused an uproar in 2014, 2015, so.
Well, it's actually a bit further than 5 feet from the canal. It's just where the property line is located.
Exactly, yeah. Like I said, seems overly cumbersome, but.
Does anybody have any other questions for Sarah? Is the LPA here to comment?
Morning, Megan Heil for the record. When the LPA deliberated on this one, it was very specific, if you notice in there, that we added the northwest corner. The thought on this was that if we just gave a flat variance, that you could have some project creep, and this wouldn't necessarily be a as-is replacement. So if you notice in there, there is a specific northwest corner written in there. I don't think we had a problem with that at all. We all passed it, but we wanted to be very specific as to this is an as-is replacement, and just if we gave you a flat variance, you just can't have project creep or decide to come back and replace it very differently than what you're coming in front of us right now to.
Good.
That was
Thank you,
well
Megan.
thought out,
That was
thank
well
you.
thought out, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just so, I mean, everybody sees, it's a weird angle. It's like, the property sits like halfway on this weird, so
Yeah,
anyhow.
But the big issue here is like on Denora. It's where the property line doesn't meet the seawall.
That's right.
That's the reason we're having this discussion. If the property line was at the seawall, I don't think we'd have the discussion, right?
Well, just as a reminder, you'll be having that discussion at your next MMP session, so this will be a good opportunity for you to begin to crystallize your thoughts about that whole situation.
Okay, I'm going to open up for public testimony. Is there any public testimony on this issue? None. Public testimony is closed. Any more questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended variance, so hold on. Do I need to read the whole hoopla?
You just say it's stated in the item.
Yeah,
As stated in the packet.
I would suggest that the motion be to approve it, that based upon the hearing this today, that you are finding that the
Findings and
criteria
conclusions.
are being met.
Okay, so let me
are met.
restate my motion. I'm moving to approve the variance request based upon the recommended findings and conclusions in our packet of January 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. This public hearing is closed. Next on the agenda, final public comment. Is there any other public comment? No public comment. Public comment is closed. Town manager's items.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to go back to the Bill Veach item, just for clarity purposes. I want to be sure that if I can work with Mr. Veach and others to find a way to perhaps have one of the not-for-profits that we collaborate with all the time here at Town Hall to purchase the bags, that the council's comfortable with us reimbursing them. So if we can find a way to do that, I just want to be sure you're all comfortable with us doing that versus a purely town procurement, which Mr. Veach explained the shortcomings of earlier today.
Just not to exceed what we had already.
Not to exceed the $10,000,
Yeah.
but
I would
to
be
to
completely
allow one of our
comfortable.
non-for-profits to buy it with Mr. Veach and then for us to
Fine.
reimburse the
I have no
not-for-profit.
issue.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll contact Mr. Veach and see if we can bring the parties together to make that happen. Earlier this morning, a memo was distributed to you. As you know, our Sean Palmer is leaving the town's employment for a position elsewhere, and I've named Allison Geeson as the interim Parks and Recreation Director, and you all should have a memo about that. I believe there's an opportunity for synergy between our various campuses that we have, Mountain House, Newton House, and Bay Oaks. So we'll operate under that organization and adjust if necessary, but just to make you and everyone aware about that.
Roger, can I just ask a question about that? So Allison will continue to do her functions of the Mount House and Newton House, but now take some administrative or
Right, we believe
director
the second-tier staff we have there
is strong
is
enough.
very strong in terms of the day-to-day operation. They just need sort of the benefit of an experienced person to bounce off what they're going to be doing next week, just to make sure they don't sort of go astray. And I think Allison will be fine too, and is very capable of doing that function.
I'm certain, but is your ultimate plan to restructure all of that, or to look to hire a new Parks and Rec director?
Well, we're looking to see if among the staff, what kind of staff growth we have. And we're also going to be monitoring how the demand of all those responsibilities impact Allison, and then we'll be making a decision.
And is there a timeline on that, or?
No specific timeline.
Okay. And is the strategic plan complete?
They're wrapping it up.
They're wrapping it up,
So Allison will?
be implementing the
So
strategic
is
plan.
Sean gone now? Or is he
He's,
still here?
He's not physically here, he's still in touch with us, we're still in
Okay.
touch with him, he's still monitoring his emails.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure thing. I don't know if this is going to come up on the council member reports or not, but it's my understanding, I've heard at the LPA meeting, the planned joint meeting date, they had several members who could not attend at that date, and that may need to be rescheduled. I'll just mention that, and I'm sure there will be follow-up on that.
Is that the 17th?
It was scheduled for the 17th.
I was going to ask to change that anyway, so under council member items.
Okay, so
bring
I'll
that
let
up.
you guys handle that
I have
then.
it too, so.
And I guess last but not least, I just want to mention that I want to thank the staff for a fine job they did while I was on vacation. And as I think all of you are aware, I was in communication with them and with you as necessary throughout the vacation. And I think we operated without any issues while I was away. So thank everybody for their cooperation with respect to that.
And how about the lighthouse?
Yeah, that's on here, the lighthouse.
Right, so you have a memo on the lighthouse, and basically we are forwarding a request from the lighthouse attorney asking for clarification. They feel that there were 3 words inadvertently not included with the council's motion for approval, and, you know, they weren't said on the record, obviously, so it wasn't, we couldn't just add them, but we just wanted to call it to the council's attention, and I'll make you aware of their request to add those in, and if you wanted to consider that, of course you can, and if you do, we'll adjust the paperwork as required in consultation with the town attorney.
Well, just so that everyone's aware, I've already signed that the way it is because the previous attorney signed it, and so I signed it. I think it's still in house. But I watched the video, and when Joanne made her motion, I mean, what I signed was consistent with Joanne's motion, so
That's correct.
I'm fine with the way it is. Unless the town attorney, this new town attorney has read it and says that we should do something different.
Well, it's not my decision to make. I think what the seller's attorney is saying is that they would like you to consider and to authorize staff to essentially do a scrivener's error type situation where this language was omitted. If you believe that that wasn't omitted, that was not part of your decision, then the document stands as is.
Does anybody else watch the video and find something different?
I watched it, and the wording does match my motion. The conversation, the discussion did include the concept, not even all dwelling units, but also permanent transfer. The word permanent also was not in the motion, even though it was discussed previously. So I would say that's up to council. I'm not sure procedurally. As the conversation also, to remember, was that we had 3 attorneys present, the applicant's attorney, who wanted the wording in there, and 2 of our own attorneys, one of which said put the wording in, and the other one said the wording didn't need to go in. So I don't think that it's essential it be changed. If it's a process preference to not change it, because this is a fait complete, then that's fine with me to leave it as is. Our discussion did indeed include the wording, the permanent transfer of all dwelling units.
Anybody else?
And
I mean,
think-
it's done. I've signed the deeds. Everything's done.
Yeah.
And yeah, she has the ordinance signed.
Weren't we the ones that wanted to transfer permanently all the dwelling units from the Estero property?
It was them that wanted to. I just voted no because I don't like that
believe we
far of a
voted-
transfer.
I believe we voted 4-1 with the mayor dissenting because of the transfer.
How far it was. And remember, there is only because when you transfer, we only transfer 2.5 because you can't, and they have to be under 400 square foot because of our I mean, there's so much that was wrong with that, but anyhow.
Right, but as Dennis just pointed out, the reason you voted against it was because we were going to transfer all the units, and now, when it came out in writing, because of the motion direction, it was missed.
But Joanne, didn't you just say you didn't see that it was missed, or it was missed?
I did not state it in my motion, even though when we spoke of it
Discussion
earlier,
was that.
and I sort of did a kind of sample motion, it was in there. So, and Bruce is entirely correct. That was why you dissented, because of that specific wording. And that's why I'm just holding back. I'm saying that's the fact of what transpired. So you're saying you want to add, that we should add it?
I'm
because
saying
that
that,
was-
I'm saying that was the intent of
That's
the
absolutely the intent.
If you
Okay.
guys want to change
And then,
it.
okay,
I
so,
think we should.
so, but the-
If-
according to the,
If I may,
Yes.
if that was the intent,
yes,
then the document should reflect that intent.
Yes, I
Okay.
agree.
So if you're
And
going to
so-
transfer all dwelling units, do you have to put how many they were, which would be 2.5 under 450 square foot?
we never discussed that, but we did,
But
the only
that's the
thing,
code.
my only concern is the word permanent transfer also be in there too. Because that was what it was. So my wording would be, where you have that underlined and all dwelling units in your memo from Jason, that underlined thing to me should say, and the permanent transfer of all dwelling units from. And the Community Development Department knows how many dwelling units that is. It just means that's now vacated, so.
Does that need to be something you need to bring back to us to ratify on record?
If you vote on revising the document today to reflect that, then unless you request, it doesn't need to come back to you, because your vote today would modify that previous document. It's up to you if you would like to see a copy of it prior to it being signed and sent out.
It's not legally necessary?
It's not.
Okay, so you,
So is that point well taken, Roger and Jason, that the word permanent should also be in there, despite the fact that Beverly didn't ask for that? That was our discussion at the time. So if we're changing it, I'd be most comfortable with saying, and the permanent transfer of all dwelling units from is the additional wording.
Jason,
And the permanent transfer of all dwelling units from is.
Right, just that underlined part in your memo,
I have it.
yeah, that's
the
what the
word
phrase
permanent.
would be.
Well, I have it exactly the way Joanne said it.
Okay, good.
So if we can just get a voice vote on that?
Yeah, it would be a motion to modify the document to reflect the intent stated at the last meeting where it was considered consistent with the memo, and we'll read it into the record.
go ahead, Dennis.
I just think that we should include the number of units.
Well, we have the total units that they're entitled to within a document.
2.5, under 400
As
square
long as
foot.
it specifies to 2.5 and they can't
Yeah,
go above that.
I don't think, I don't think it's the sending part that they care about. They care about the receiving part, and that's clearly enumerated within the document.
Yeah, but we have to care about,
Yeah, we just want to send more than we're supposed to.
it's not just about them.
Well, but effectively, what was done in practicality was that you took the units off the single-family lot that we're receiving and gave those to allow the lighthouse to increase theirs to 75.
Right.
My memory is correct.
From way over there to way over there.
And Michelle, do we have an is that ordinance number or something? So for the motion, to make the motion?
It's ordinance 18-17.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to modify ordinance 18-17 to insert, instead of the words "and all dwelling units," it'll say "and the permanent transfer of all dwelling units."
And Dennis is second for discussion. I'll just make one comment.
Is that motion sufficient?
I would,
Scrivener's.
yes, I would add to reflect the intent of the original vote at the last meeting.
To reflect, amending my motion to say to reflect the intent of town council at the
17.
public hearing
Dennis, do you
I'll
second?
amend my.
on December 17th.
I'll amend my second.
Dennis amended his second, and just for discussion, I'm going to stick with my dissenting vote because I still believe that we should not transfer that far away. I think we opened Pandora's box, and it's a bad idea. But, all in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Nay. Motion carries 4-1 with Mayor Gore dissenting. Okay. Is there anything else under town manager's items?
No, ma'am.
Okay, town attorney's items. Welcome, town attorney, your
Thank
first hearing here with us.
Yes, just, again, it's a pleasure. I'm honored and humbled to be here. I did attend the LPA meeting on Tuesday. I spent the rest of the day here meeting with staff and starting to get up to speed on all things, getting acquainted with the individual staff members and their needs, the procedures that we have in place here. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you and the staff and the community to continue the great job that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
Mr. Lang asked me for clarification, to ask the council just for clarification. As you know, council voted to work collaboratively with Cape Coral and other cities on defending our position about the water releases.
yes, and I sent you guys the invoices.
Correct, okay. One of the issues is that there were sort of municipalities in, then perhaps other municipalities may have been in, and other municipalities may not have been in. And one of the things was, while we agreed to share the cost, it was never very clear what percentage the town would pay. So are we paying a third? Are we paying 25%? Or are we paying? So is our assumption that that whatever the number of municipalities that are in, so if that's 5, we're all going to pay
1/5.
1/5. So I just want to be clear. So we'll get it established, the other cities are in, and then we'll pay our proportionate share.
Yeah, I had sent you guys an email with the finance people from Cape Coral. Did nobody ever contact them?
We did, and frankly, we contacted them, we contacted the law firm, we contacted everybody, and no one was really clear. We subsequently found out that Sanibel sent $30,000, if my memory is correct. So what we're probably going to do is pay the same amount and then wait for any reconciliation bill beyond that.
Also, City of Fort Myers has paid their share too, so you might want to check with.
We'll do that. Thank you, Bob.
Can I just say something, if
Sure.
I may, please? From an accounting or financial reporting side, I have no billing. All I have is a document that says there's been $168,000 incurred through the memo of the documentation you provide to me, Mayor. When as Roger indicated, I did speak with the attorney for Cape Coral, and they have no idea of who's supposed to pay what or how much. Before I disperse any funds from the town, I would request of you all to see what this distribution will be so that we can get a billing from them that says this is our share of the total cost, because it's also indicative that the final legal fees have not been incurred yet, that it's still ongoing, and there may still be more. So rather than just write a check for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, for audit purposes, I would like to see some kind of documentation that bills us as our proportionate share, whatever that may be, so that that's my backup documentation.
We'll work with the attorney firm and/or Cape Coral to get
Yeah, I was
that.
going to ask, what is it you want us to do? I mean, isn't that something you guys do?
Yeah, we'll follow up with them.
Okay, thank you.
But shouldn't there be some recognition by the councils that are involved in this agreement as to some formal agreement that, which I think what you're asking for is very appropriate. Some formal agreement amongst the councils, some vote, some resolution that says, hey, we're all in this together. We're all going to pay 1/5 of whatever those costs are. Here's what we think the costs might be, and here's how we're going to go about it, and here's our whole purpose in this gig.
Yeah, well, I think, as you may recall, there was a significant timing issue when this issue came up. We were under a deadline to either be in or be out, and a response had to be filed in a very short time frame. And so there's not sort of this global umbrella interlocal agreement among all the parties. The law firm was tasked to work on it. The outside law firm was tasked to work on it. They did. And all we need to really understand, and we can work with the municipality and the attorney firm to basically say that the entire bill is X, and here's each governmental entity's share, and and we'll be listed with the others, and we'll pay our proportionate amount, assuming the division is correct. So
Roger,
we'll
I
get
guess
it
what
done.
I'm asking for is a little bit more than that.
Right.
I would like something memorialized on paper to
Mm-hmm.
this effect. And quite honestly, I'd like to have an update on this.
We don't have we're waiting for a decision from the judge.
Through the
Okay.
mayor?
Yes.
I am familiar with the case already to some degree. I have spoken to some of my counterparts who are involved on behalf of their cities on what's going on. As the mayor indicates, there was a hearing that took place through a weird set of circumstances that I don't necessarily, if you want, I can explain. This firm came in at the very last minute, was retained by one of the municipalities. They took the lead, and there's this ad hoc conversation amongst different individuals and councils. I was here when the mayor, I believe, of Sanibel came here asking you all to participate. With all that said, I will work with the manager and with the finance director to memorialize and obtain, even if it is via email confirmation, what the arrangement is, and that everyone's in agreement with that arrangement. So we have that appropriate and memorialized, as you indicated, so the finance director can
I appreciate that, John,
make the
because
payments properly.
yeah, I mean, we're not talking about $25. We're talking significant sums of money, and though I am certain the intentions of the other municipalities are honorable, it still would be nice to have something that says, hey, here's my signature, here's your signature, and we're all in.
When we had our session about this and when we decided to hire that firm, we all knew that there may be 3 and hopefully 5. So the council knew there may be 3 up to 5 entities. Plus, I think another entity, a nonprofit or something joined in too, but you'll find all that out, town attorney.
We'll
Those
circle back.
those uncertainties are unsettling at this point.
Understood. I understand exactly.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
But just to be clear, the representation is ongoing, and it's just really now how the bill gets divided among the entities.
Sure.
Just so the public knows, this is about a decision that we are arguing with the South Florida Water Management District about their flows from Lake O into our waters. And so we're hoping that a judge sides with us.
And the standards of how clean
Exactly,
the
the
water.
standards of it.
This is so important. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else under town attorney?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
So council member items and reports. Bruce?
Okay, I have a question about the Mango Street parking lot. I meant to look at it this morning when I drove by, and I forgot to. Are they making any progress on fixing that? Is it
I was thinking
operating?
the same thing, because it looks the same as it always has.
I mean, I've gotten calls from other parking lots about that.
I can see if we can get Jason in here. I think he has the current status of that.
Seen any cars parked on it, though? Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
using-
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because I haven't,
They're in business.
Jason, can you answer Councilmember Butcher's question?
better. Are you okay?
I just ran. Hold on.
Oh,
It's not that
Chance to
far.
catch his
you
breath.
mean from the other side of the building or from Publix?
It's not funny.
God, I hate to see you at Planet Fitness.
What was the question? I'm sorry. The Mango Street parking lot?
Too much blood
They've
going around.
received approval for their DO, excuse me, or their LDO.
Say what?
They've received approval for their LDO, so they basically can start construction.
How long, why
start,
is this
must
taking so
start.
long?
Must start, I'm sorry, yes, must start. The engineering response times and review times, between all that, it just takes time.
But they received the DO a while back. I thought.
No, they submitted on time, and
Right.
we did multiple reviews, and they revised some of the site to lower the amount of fill, reduce the amount of work that's being done, make it not as drainage reliant heavy, I guess I'll say.
But when was the DO complete?
A couple weeks ago, I think it
Right.
was.
So back to your point, sorry.
I don't remember the exact date that I issued the
This
final.
was your point.
So when do they have to make something happen?
Technically, you don't have any deadlines in the conditions of when they have to finish construction. He's chomping at the bit to get going, though, honestly. He's been
He's
in
been
here.
chomping at the bits and
Well,
Dan Andre was
He's
on
been in
council.
here asking and pushing us also, so, it was really an engineering thing, working back and forth on that to make sure it's a better design than
Engineering issue had to do with flooding?
I'm sorry?
The engineering had to do with the water flow
Yeah,
primarily?
some of it, just to make sure that there's, what happens is to move water, you gotta move earth, right? So it was trying to reduce and meet engineering standards, but also at the same time, not over change the site, I guess I'll put it that way. So not put too much fill one side and not enough on another side, so,
It's ugly, and they need to get it fixed.
understood.
Rather than later.
But and Bruce, I think that, sorry to interject, it's an important topic. We've all heard from not only surrounding properties, but other parking lot owners of permanent parking lots who meet the standards, and yet this parking lot has not. And I think that it's only fair to the surrounding residents and to the, let's say, competing parking businesses who've made the investment and the appearance for the community, that this be done. That they're making money now, they're parking. The town council was actually lenient and kind with them in going through this for an extended period of time, more than one town council, so now it needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right, Vice Mayor. The council was extremely lenient and flexible trying to facilitate this project. One of the elements of that flexibility was allowing them to proceed to operate while this process was going on. Normally, of course, as you well know, they would have had to build it before they could open. As Jason indicated, the owner has indicated to us that they're anxious to get the improvements done. They have a green light. They have no impediments at this particular point in time to get them done. So we will continue to follow up with him to try to expedite the completion of those improvements so that it is consistent with the other private parking lots on the island.
I thought when you got a development order done, there's a time limit that development order is good for. Isn't there like within 6 months or something?
No, it's several years. I think it's 2 or 3 years, I can't
Are
remember.
you sure? I'm going to double check that with you.
Okay.
But
Somewhere between 0 and 3 years.
Hard to get them to do anything during the season.
go ahead, Bruce.
That's it? I mean, that's it for that? Okay.
So that's all I could report, is they've asked about silt fence, they've asked about ordering fences, they're in that process, in their mindset, so.
Okay, so, some months ago, I asked Roger about how many people had signed up to the town for emails, because as part of our strategic planning, we talked about a communication outreach, and I was concerned that we weren't pushing information out. I had made some recommendations about sending things in water bills, and so I was curious how many people in the community had signed up for emails on the town websites to receive data. And the answer is community development has 70 people signed up, cultural resources has 31, finance 25, general government 49, parks and recs 47, public works 88, town clerk 31. So we don't have hardly anybody that's signing up for these email things.
Bruce, are these unique numbers? In other
Yes.
words, 70 distinct people in each category?
What, 70, 31,
No, it could be the
25?
same
No, it could be
person.
the
It could
same
be-
person registered in each one.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So, okay.
And then to carry that farther, they also provided the red code numbers. In 2017, there was residential red codes. Code red. Yeah, code red, thank you. 915, businesses 43. It says email 370, so I don't know what that means, and text 720. Okay, all right. There's 915, 43 broken down between residents and business, and of that, 370 were by email and 720 by text message. And in 2018, down to 283 residential, business 23, broken up into email 124 and text 226. So we had a very large drop in people signed up for Code Red, which is, I guess, a little surprising and alarming. And from a strategy standpoint, that tells me that our communication process is not really functioning very well.
Well, I don't want to disagree with the counselor, but I do want to just make a point. Having teenagers in my family and young adults, they're away from emails and they're Snapchat and Facebook and, so I think there's a technological transition going on. We actually get more people calling, like when we call people about water line disruptions, we have people like, why are you bothering me? When we send out an email. Take me off, I don't care. So I think there's sort of a general attitude of people to try to reduce the number of emails they get because, between solicitations and other things, and I think they're moving to other platforms. We have in the last year, have started to focus on putting things on Facebook, towns, to try to move towards the sort of more trendier ways of communication. And that may be reflective of some of these downturns in numbers that the council read off.
So for Code Red, does that come on Facebook?
Yes.
My understanding is there's less people using Facebook now than there was before.
There are.
There are, and whether we now need to transition to Twitter or other things, that's something we need to constantly be looking at because
You have to look at the demographic, because people our age are still using Facebook. But somebody who's, well, you all have never used it, have you?
That's right.
Okay. So we don't count you. But
we're
those
older than you.
users, but 20-year-olds
Right.
are using other platforms, you're right.
Yeah, but the point is, how do we measure, how do we say we're effectively communicating with our community from a strategic standpoint? Now, we can say
I
this
agree
for...
Oh, my gosh.
For
Don't they call you?
Not like they call you.
Oh. Give you Bruce's number.
well, I think
Well,
that's
that's not the point, though. The point is our communication out, not people complaining in. That's part of the reason you get complaints in, is because they may not understand what's going on.
Well, I think also there's a lot about the demographics, as was mentioned. I think it's also a fact that this is a very small community, and I suspect by now half the town knows what color shirt I was wearing today. So,
But by the time it gets from one end to the other, we go from blue to pink.
yeah, probably. But I think the counselor makes a good point, and that is that we can't be complacent in that our current strategy, as adequate or inadequate as it may be at one time, is working. We have to constantly be changing it and trying other things because there's a freshness aspect to it that we just have to keep up with. And yeah, there may be people who are ancient like me and just use email, but there's still a lot of folks who, while they may not be on Facebook or they may not be on Twitter, their friends are, and they're calling them and saying, hey, did you see this? Or they're sending them screenshots of the page and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a constant effort. And frankly, we're not fully resourced to keep up with that. I think, council, as part of the budget deliberations at times, has discussed, have we gotten to the point where we need a PIO or marketing position or not? And we'll continue to have those discussions.
I wonder, is this something we should M&P again? It was part of our strategic plan. Or is this something that you feel that you can just research and see what other platforms Benita, Sanibel, other communities use and try to be as proactive and current as we can be, because communication to the community is part of the strategic goal of this town council.
Right, well, I think, as I think I've mentioned to, it's our intention to do a total refresh of the strategic plan in the March timeframe. And perhaps, as part of that effort, we can all collectively work on ways to better accomplish that.
Okay, my next item is the street sweeper that we talked about at the recent meeting. And I asked the question, how many miles were on the street sweeper? Chelsea chased it down for me. In over 2 years, our street sweeper has incurred the use of 2,243 miles. I mean, this thing doesn't even need an oil change yet.
I know.
So the idea of getting a new one, it seems ludicrous to me. And I don't have all the details. I don't have all the facts. I don't know how these things self-destruct. And I'm sure that kind of equipment has a tendency to somewhat self-destruct. In fact, she says the replacement things are ongoing, the brushes and the this and that all the time. But the chassis of that thing ought to be able to last for 25 years. The motor's going to last for 25 years. This is a diesel-powered, heavy-duty chassis. By the way, I used to make heavy-duty chassis and was in the diesel engine business and parts. This thing is going to last. Now, the box has an opportunity to be replaced. Other things can be replaced. So somebody needs to do a deep dive on this. And I think my opinion would be I would not vote for buying a new piece of equipment without a great deal of study. Leasing, well, no, I would buy it. I wouldn't get something new. I would maintain this piece of equipment.
So just to piggyback off that before your next item is, my shrimp boat, we're diesel shrimp boats, and my husband has diesel trucks, and they last forever. But the town owned their own sweeper, and it was right before Dennis and I got elected, they ended up leasing this one, and that's why it's coming up again. And we had said that when we came in, we're like, why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. I would go back, we had that small sweeper that could get around, and they sold it and got the lease, and I don't know why still. So I'm with you. I'd rather either buy a smaller one or do something cheaper because
I'll just keep this one. I mean, buy it out at the end of its lease. But, I mean, I'm not here to make a management decision on it because I don't have all the facts, but it would seem apparent to me that there's a good opportunity to not buy a new one, maintain this one, acquire this one. Yeah, it's leased, but it has a residual buyout on it, as I understand. So we buy it out at the end of the lease and then just keep it.
smaller one. I don't think we need that huge one.
I don't know.
But bring us.
Manager, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I do. We have a report coming to you for the MMP session next week, as requested. We had recommended extending the lease because we felt the piece of equipment was in good condition. But we looked at that relative to what the buyout would be today versus a year from now. And we'll have those numbers for you, and you could decide whether you want to buy it now or you want to extend the lease for a year and then possibly buy it then.
Roger,
We
I
also
want more
have-
than just that option, though, not just buying this one, looking at there are other types of sweepers that we've had in the past and other municipalities use that aren't so huge or necessary.
Well, if the
Big world out there, lots of options.
Well, I will tell you that the piece of equipment that we have is the one that's typically used by most municipalities for their street sweeping operations. Elgin is very well-respected and utilized by most governments that I'm aware of in terms for their street sweeping operations. The question of, I don't believe that going and abandoning this lease and buying a new one is really going to be the cheaper option, but we'll see if we can get those numbers for you. We think you're really the council. We also looked at privatizing it, just paying a firm to come and do the work for us, and that's more expensive. So I think the choice before the council will be whether or not you want to buy it out now or lease it for one more year and then perhaps buy it out then.
What about the county comes for to sweep the middle of the road now with their new stormwater? Can you piggyback off of them to do our side streets?
My understanding is that they contracted the last sweeping operation that they did. They haven't put in a permanent solution for the maintenance of the paved area yet.
The county finds it cheaper to contract out, but it's more expensive for us.
Well, they actually wanted us to do it, and we just didn't want to get involved in the maintenance of that area. But for a one-time basis, if you're doing it only once, yeah, it's whatever, but that's not our case. We're not doing it just once. So anyway, it'll be on your M&P, and you guys can tear into all the aspects of it then.
All right, thank you. Bruce?
Okay, the final thing I have is that I was talking to Larry Kiker about Estero Boulevard and how it takes a long time to get it done. And I said, Larry, it just seems like a long time. I'm not complaining. I know you guys got issues, but I'd like to know more. So he set up a meeting for me with the assistant, Doug, assistant county manager, and the construction company, and I sat with them for quite a while, going over the issues that they face and that the town faces. And I found it to be a very, very interesting meeting. I learned an awful lot, and I think that many people do not have a good appreciation for the problems that occur on Estero Boulevard with this construction. And so I recommended to the county that they have a communication exercise with our local media, the papers and whatnot, to explain in some detail, in layman's terms, some of the issues that we face on Estero Boulevard, other than just hearing, well, it's a very complex thing. And everybody I speak to, even our people from Tetra Tech, said it's the most complex thing I've ever seen, But why is it the most complex thing? Let's have a better understanding of it, and then make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep this program on track. So Larry would like to come and speak to the town council about some of these details, and then also talk about the thing that Joanne's going to talk about. And I said, well, okay, that sounds like a good idea to me. So I'm bringing that up as an item for us to consider, to invite Larry to come and give a perspective on Estero Boulevard.
Good for consensus? Because I'm
Yes.
okay with that.
Yeah.
Yes? Yes.
Okay, good. Then the other thing is, I'm concerned. I asked him, well, what can we do as a town to help? And the response I received was that they're concerned with our dates on the outfalls, that we haven't met the schedule for committing to approve or committing to finish outfalls in a timely manner that may end up creating some permitting issues. And
Well, hang on 1 second. Is that true, Roger?
So, I love our good friends at the county, okay? But, we met with them, and we told them the things that we could do to expedite the project, and the things they could do for us to help us expedite the project. And they've rejected those, or haven't followed through on them. So the net effect of that is that they do their design, then they turn it over to us, and we have to design around them. And then we have to, and hang on, and then we have to, but we build first. So we're last in on design and first into construction.
You're talking
And even with all of that, we are ahead of them. Forget about what their schedule says on paper. In terms of what's going on in the field, we are ahead of them. We are not in their way. And in fact, they're holding us up because they have not given us the point of beginning for the side streets that they're asking us to get complete. So we don't even know where to connect to their system on some of these side streets. So
I'm just talking about outfalls, Roger.
That's what I'm talking about. So we're getting to the point, and I had this conversation with our construction manager yesterday, that we're going to start building them, and the connection point, the first outfall on our side street to their connection point, they're going to have, the county's going to have to come back and make that connection themselves, because since they won't tell us where it is, we're just going to build ours where we know we're going, because we can't wait for them and then have them run around town saying that we're late.
Two sides to every story.
So I have a meeting, hopefully the afternoon of the 17th, if our M&P doesn't go that long, with the county manager and with Doug. I know we worked out the schedule for the, where we didn't have agreement with the schedule, so that the revision to the interlocal can come before town council. I was going to spend some time looking at the issues of why is it only 20%? Is that the right number? Why are they paying us after the whole project's done instead of paying us as we incrementally complete the project? And some other things, but, if the council wants to, just continue with the old agreement with just the revised dates, we could bring that forward too.
So you're saying that the reason that we don't have a committed date on various streets for outfalls is because they haven't given you where to connect them?
Haven't given us the point of connection.
Oh, that's going to be a very interesting discussion then.
Oh, that will come up in my conversation.
That's why we get to talk like this at council member items.
Yeah. So, but.
I mean, look, I understand that they have this sort of commitment out there that says they want to be done by 2021, and they have pieces of paper that show that they're going to be done by 2021, okay? But you guys drive the same streets that I drive.
Right.
Okay? And you can see the physical progress, and you can see that they told you, just by way of example, that they had intended to be done in front of Red Coconut by December, and you all drove here on the way to this meeting, most of you, coming from that direction, and you saw for yourself where they're at. And I'm not, hopefully it's not coming off as saying anything disparaging about the county. They're doing the very best they can on what I agree is a very complex project. But this idea that we're holding them up is only because of the way, if that's true at all, it's only because of the methodology that they're using to implement the project.
That answer?
Well, it does, well, it adds another viewpoint. I wouldn't say I have an answer yet, but the fact is, I believe that we have a misunderstanding between the two parties as to what needs to be done when, and we don't have the firm dates, and maybe we don't have the permits. And it seems to me, it seems to be a significant red flag that this could delay the project, and that's the last thing in the world I want is see any delay in this project.
But you understand what Roger said, the town is on, we are on schedule.
No. You're talking, I'm not talking about the construction. I'm talking about the future construction and future permitting.
Right,
That's
but
what I'm talking
Counselor,
He's
here's the
explained that.
important point. We build first, theoretically. That's the goal, is for us to put the water line in first. But if they're forcing us to wait for them to complete their design before we start our design.
This doesn't have anything to do with the water line. Maybe I'm not being clear. This has to do with the outfalls, which is,
It's all
On
together.
on our outfalls, the only reason, if you subscribe to their position that we're behind, the biggest issue we have is that they have not told us the point to connect to, okay? And that makes the design very difficult when you don't know where you're connecting to. And that, in some cases,
Sounds
is
real.
they haven't identified the street, and in some cases, they haven't identified where they have identified the street, where on that street that they want us to connect to.
then I guess my concern is, why don't we know this, and why aren't we bringing this up? And according to my information, Lazy Way shared outfall, improved shared outfall, the desired completion date was February 2019. The last date was May 19. Now it's November 19. So if we're slipping dates as they believe we might be, then why aren't we jumping
Okay, but
up and
those dates are, there's a lot to this, but the dates that they need that for is not for service, but for convenience of construction. So, and not that's not an important element, and we're not trying to accommodate them. But the fact of the matter is, and that, again, we're all in this together, and we're all, when we're all in the canoe, our butts are wet or all our butts are dry. We're all in the canoe together. But the point of the matter is that this council also, if you remember back, said that we're not doing anything until we have the 30% plans, and Tetra Tech then shifted gears to get all the 30% plans done. So, as you did say, there is a lot of moving parts with this thing, and I think everyone is doing everything possible to be as expeditious as possible, but it's an ongoing effort of cooperation, and putting dates on a piece of paper in an interlocal agreement is not going to change the reality of what happens in the field.
Okay, so it sounds like to me that Larry has volunteered to come to, I'll call it a work session, and he can bring the other guys with us, and we can have a nice sit-down and just get to the bottom of this, because I'm just very, very concerned that we are able to work with them to make sure we hit the dates of 2021.
The date of 2021, let's everyone just, I'm glad that no one's being sworn in on this testimony, but they're not going to make 2021, okay? All right?
That's what Kay Moner said, though, and she's both of our PR person.
All right, but I realize that's the aspirational goal, and to the extent that we can gain some time to minimize the length of construction, everyone is working towards that effort. Also want to remind you that every M&P representatives from the county are invited here to discuss any and all issues with you. And if you think back, Commissioner Kiker actually came to one of the first ones, and no one ever said you're not welcome back. He's always welcome back, I would suspect. All that being said, I think it's great for him to be here. As I said, I have a meeting with them on Thursday. Hopefully the RMP will end early enough that I can make it. And I'm more concerned about what's happening in the field than putting dates on pieces of paper. Putting dates on pieces of paper doesn't change what happens in the field. You obviously want to have a roadmap to getting the job done in the field, but if you've worked with infrastructure schedules, my experience is about 40 seconds after they're printed, they already need revision of one sort or another.
Right, but my concern is that one of the long lead times that we continually have is the permitting process.
That's correct.
If we don't have our schedule and designs and everything oriented, and engineering plans that we can get the permits done on time, then we hit a hard stop at some point. So
Right, and we had suggested to the county that they allow us to go first, and they design their deflections and after us to help that process, and they said no because they didn't want to incur the additional cost of constructions of them having to build the deflections, so we have to do that.
Okay, well, clearly we got opportunities to clarify things and to move forward in a better fashion.
I just asked one question on that. Roger, isn't there a weekly meeting?
Yes.
So when you're with all of these people, are these things discussed every week?
The fact of the matter is that there's a weekly meeting. There's a monthly meeting that's probably held 10 months out of the year, occasionally gets canceled. These things are discussed. The fact of the matter is that the stuff in the field is going as fast as it can go. The unknown factor, as Councilor Butcher mentioned, is the Army Corps of Engineers. We don't know how quickly they will issue permits. It could be a year, it could be 9 months, it could be less. And it's those lead times, when you're doing a schedule, you plan, of course, for the worst. It's those lead times that concern the county. To the county's credit, they have worked very hard with us through their communications with the Army Corps of Engineer to expedite those permits, and in fact, they haven't been taking a year. But, you know, we just never know how long any particular set will take.
Okay, but those meetings are still going on, you're still attending those meetings, our staff is attending the meetings, and that's still all happening.
That's still all happening, and the real fact of the matter is that the production in the field, okay, is going as fast as it can go.
They got a skeleton. crew
Well,
working out there. That's a joke.
based on how it's being staffed, I know, well, Council Bobak, you know, you have mentioned about additional crews, you know, the county at times is, due to costs, has been reluctant to do night work when that might expedite the project and so on and so forth. But in terms of the resources that are being deployed, we're bringing in extra crew. We have our contract bringing extra crews to make sure that we're going and as fast as we can go, and we're staying ahead of them.
I wasn't talking about the town's crews, Roger. I was talking about the county crews, the contractor. I mean, the main reason they're not going as fast as they can, in my opinion, is because they don't have a drop-dead date on that contractor when it was supposed to be done, or the contractor gets fined. So he's got his skeleton crew working there, and he's out doing the jobs with most of his crew that he's got a drop-dead date on. And all we are is for him to fill in with crews. I mean, I'm up and down this island every day. They've got more equipment than they have people working, number one. And I see days where nobody's working. And I'm not talking about weekends or holidays.
Which is a complaint we get from citizens a lot, too.
I mean, so to sit here and say that the contractor in the county working as fast as they can, I totally disagree with that.
Bruce, do you have any other?
No, and hence that's the reason we need to have a meeting so that we can
No one
clear
has-
the air again.
Do you
Okay.
have any other council member items?
No, I don't.
Can I just say one last thing? I hate to sort of shoot this thing to death. I think, I forgot who said it, but someone said, we share a public relations firm who's handling the public
Yes.
information on these projects. So to the extent that the message about the status of the project or information on how the project methodology or anything else that needs to be getting out there,
We're
they
paying a
and
firm.
us and Kay sits in on all the weekly meetings, and she typically had sat in on all the monthly meetings. So that message can be conveyed. They send out the email, they put stuff in the paper, so there's an opportunity to help explain the project timeline to everybody and methodology. That's all, that should be readily, easily
And
accomplished.
I did ask them to improve some of that information of how they describe the project and its successes and troubles, and so they're supposedly working on that, and we can follow up with them again when we have this workshop together. That's it for me. I will just say, when I went to the county, I didn't go there, I told them specifically, I'm not here to complain or anything, I'm just here to try to understand some of these complexities of the project, so then we got into everything else, so,
Going to call Larry and set up a,
yes, I will.
okay.
Well, no,
You like to go
I've
next?
already talked to Larry about setting something up in regard to, let's just, if I can piggyback off of that conversation.
Want
on
to
my first
piggyback,
item.
or do you want to go next? I was going to have you go later because I know it's going to be,
I'd like
I'm
to
going to
go.
need 2 minutes.
I'd like to go next on this
Before a
item at
break.
least. The rest can save, except I know that the LPA is waiting to hear a date. I was going to put that number 1, but now I have to put that number 2 on my list.
So do you
but
want to go?
Not to go on to
So
your
go
need to
ahead.
leave.
Well, I don't need, I just need a 2-minute
Okay.
break.
With regard, you've already received, do you want the 2-minute break right now?
If I could just,
Everybody's
everybody,
2-minute break.
because
Right.
this is,
2-minute
just so everybody understands, our agenda, we're done talking about the agenda items. This is the time that we get to talk together, and so it's probably going to be a while today, because we have a lot to talk about. Thank you. 2 minutes.
with the head of the
You're next on the.
Okay, and first of all, this continues on as Councilor Butcher was just discussing with regard to the Boulevard conversation. I've handed out to everybody this, what we call a traffic plan. As the designated representative from Town Council to meet with the County Commissioner, Roger and I met with the County Commissioner and two other members of county staff, Mr. Moyer and Mr. Desjardins, at the commission offices, and they showed us this. You have to understand that this plan is a very preliminary plan. There's already changes and adjustments being made to it. But, oh, Michelle, can you put it up on the screen for everybody to see?
Good call, Dennis.
And the intent of my getting together, of course, was just to be the point person. But at the end of that meeting, and in a subsequent telephone conversation with the commissioner last week, we said that we were going to have a meeting with county staff, probably Mr. Moyer and Mr. Desjardins, county commissioner. Muir, I'm sorry.
That's
Muir.
Mr. Moyer.
Oh, yeah, Muir. Yeah, Muir, I'm sorry. And so the county would do a presentation on this. They were also sending this to FDOT. The reason this wasn't released at the time of our meeting, late November or December, because this was their preliminary drawing. They haven't even gone to FDOT yet with this at that point. There's going to be changes. Yes, Roger.
They hadn't even really fully vetted it among the county commissioners yet as well.
Correct. And so, and in all honesty, what transpired was this wound up, it wasn't going to be released yet, but it wound up being released and it wound up being seen in the town. So I wanted to get it to the town council today, not to discuss it, but just as a courtesy so that all members of town council had equally seen it if it's being discussed in the community. So that's where we are with this. So it's not on your table today to discuss and say, I love this, I hate this, whatever. It's on the table today so that we're all equally informed on the conversation in case someone speaks to you about it. But the intent of this, as I said, is to establish a meeting. And I just spoke again with the county commissioner during the break, and he reiterated that they want us to send some dates. And now he just said that they will send us some dates. And the intent will be that at least County Commissioner Kiker, members of county staff, probably Mr. Muir and Mr. Desjardins at a minimum, perhaps people from FDOT. You're probably listening, Lee County. So when we saw this, when Roger and I saw this, they also had the animated version of it, so you could see the little cars moving, you know, the arrows flowing and all that. And we would hope then the commissioner also mentioned discussing the rest of the boulevard, and it goes to your point, Bruce. And then also, since we talked about the rest of the boulevard, then we should probably add on that just the concept of the schedule again. And maybe at that point, too, there could be some component of this meeting that's meant to explain the complexity of the project to the community. Since we have everybody there all at once, perhaps we can do it as a package, if that works for council. So at this point, we are at the point of scheduling something with the county. I'm expecting to hear back from the commissioner, and those are the topics. There would be a large meeting. And is there any other topic within that context that you, and you know, it might entail landscape or anything else too, but is there any other topic that's specifically on the list that I just mentioned for that meeting?
Well, I just want to make a note that I've seen this a while back, and I talked to the FDOT about it. I didn't share it with the public until yesterday when you sent it to us. Then I sent it out to the public so they could see it. So I don't know how the public saw it either, but it is definitely a conceptual. I have lots of concerns. Once I sent it out to citizens on the island, they sent me back lots of concerns. And I think one of the main things that I'm going to tell you right off the bat is the fact that we're putting new pedestrian crosswalks right where there's always an accident. I don't understand that. People come off that bridge and hit that over by the surf shop all the time.
And we will have this conversation at the meeting. I think that it's.
But if the county's listening, it'd be nice for them to address it when they come to see us, so we don't have to, you know, that's just crazy. And this whole U-turn.
And let me continue then. I guess the main question was, are there any other specific topics within that meeting that you can think of that I didn't say? So we can put it together as a package? Well, it would be, those people are coming. It's going to be this traffic plan. It's going to be discussing the rest of the island, the boulevard design for the rest of the island. It's the schedule.
South End Bridge?
Yes, that was my understanding. Commissioner, whoever's listening from county, if I'm wrong, correct me. That was my understanding. Discussion about the rest of the island. And then, as you mentioned today, Bruce, that maybe we can ask for an explanation to the community, just a specific chart or something that people can understand the complexity of it probably is worthwhile. And that's why I'm asking, is there anything else, topic, not specifics, but topic that we should add into that meeting? That's a pretty big meeting. Oh, yes, I have that on there, the scheduled dates, completion dates. So from there then.
That's not just here, you're talking about island-wide completion dates.
That's correct. So I'm expecting a phone call or a text from the commissioner at some point with some dates, and I will give those to Roger, and then Roger can figure it out. Now, secondarily then, during that meeting, and remember, this was really preliminary, a first concept. So if you've gotten feedback, you probably got people who love it and people who hate it and everything in between, because that's what we do here on this island. But I have. But remember one thing. Objective 7H of the comp plan is experiment widely. widely. The town shall constantly
No,
search.
wildly is better.
Well, and it could be wildly.
That's what this is.
Wildly or widely, pick
L
your,
is
take your
optional.
pick. That's our other option. But the town shall constantly search for innovative solutions to longstanding traffic problems and new problems as they develop, and coordinate its efforts with those of Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the town shall serve as a catalyst for traffic engineering experiments that would evaluate minor improvements that might improve traffic flow. So at any rate, that's what we're going to do. So I'm not looking for a big conversation today. I was looking for us all to have a fair, that we all had it at the same time, and we're all in the conversation.
One clarification.
Yes, sir.
What this is showing, if I'm correct here, is 10 crosswalks to replace one crosswalk.
Yep.
That will be in our conversation.
That's
So-
going to help
Sure
traffic
hope
flow.
Now, on to the next point then.
Added.
We had talked, this town council had talked about the fact that we want a traffic light at Old San Carlos and one at Crescent. We had talked about that.
Well, they wanted
This
one at
plan,
Crescent.
They want one, that doesn't say we want it.
okay, but at any rate, it's been the conversation. This also includes a traffic light here at base. I'm just informing you that.
That's
But the
different, but that's
interesting,
not just for this, though. That's a conversation outside of this, what you brought forward. That traffic light is not about this.
well, it does relate to this. I'm bringing another point, however, and the other point is this, that any traffic lights that we have, I want you to be aware, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 traffic lights, would be operated through the Lee County TOC, the Traffic Operations Center. The Traffic Operations Center is on Billy Creek. And what that is are individuals who monitor TV screens. And these would be, whether we have 1 light, 2 lights, or 3 lights, or no lights. No lights doesn't count, but any number of lights can be monitored on TV screen, and they're smart lights, and they can change the timing. I want you to be aware of that. That being said, the town council was invited to go visit TOC if you want to go see the Traffic Operations Center and understand how it works. So as we discuss this, it will inform our conversation. So I'm offering that to town council. Do we want to set up a time all together to go see
I don't know that we
TOC?
can legally. Town attorney, can we go on a field trip together?
Sure. You would have to notice it as a public meeting, and a provision would have to be provided for
public to
For the
attend.
public to
Okay.
attend,
Then, but if we do
can,
it, but
yeah.
if we do it individually, then we could just go and
That
have
is
it as an
correct.
invitation.
Right.
I think that would be better, because I don't think that the invitation wasn't to disrupt TOC and have
Right.
public, whatever. So I
Who do
guess
we
what I'll
contact?
say is, I didn't have a contact person. Roger, what would do you have a gut feeling of who we should each individually contact?
Well, I think the best thing to do is coordinated through the assistant county manager. Or, Mr. Muir, I believe, oversees that operation as well. So,
Do you want to maybe get
yeah,
a couple
I'll
of
have
dates and you'll
Michelle-
offer them to us?
yeah, Michelle and I will work together to get a couple of windows when they could accommodate counselors, and then we'll send them out to you, and you can pick the date and time that's most convenient for you individually.
Okay, and then the other thing is with regard to seafarers. Oh, also in the conversation, I'm just going to mention one last thing so that you all sort of have heard what I heard during the meeting. With regard to this traffic plan, when you look at the center island there, were this plan in place, there's a large center island here and then that V-shaped grass. And the county discussed that we would be able to design the landscape feature that we want, and also an entry feature there. If we want a sign or, what we want to do, that we could utilize this as an entry feature to the island. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or otherwise. I'm telling you what the conversation was. And then lastly is the seafarers itself, the cleanup. As you know, I was the point on that, and I appreciate, especially working with Jesse Lavender has been the person who's worked on that the most. But everybody was really helpful. I stopped down on a regular basis and checked on their progress. They're now replacing all the black fence that was destroyed or had been replaced by chain link. They're putting it all that nice, consistent. You'll notice that that little bump in that had been there on Estero Boulevard, they now have that flat. They will be adding some low voltage lighting in the area. And I only had one question. I had talked to Jesse and the county about whether we would indeed use, remember the screening that they proposed that was that pretty beach scene with palm trees? And there was some discussion whether we would use it just on the back, just where it would block the view into Helmrich. Now that I see it open, I'm not sure that it's necessary, number one, and number two, I'm not sure that it's advisable from a security and open point of view.
I would
And so
agree with
I'm asking for your feedback because I told Jesse Lavender that I would call him and let him know if the town council wants the county to spend money to put screening there or not.
I agree with you. I don't want the screening. I think the screening
that's
turns
one
ugly.
against.
I think that's fine, Joanne, but I would just make one other point. The other day when I came down through there, they had one of them trams in there and they were doing maintenance on it. The guy's laying under the ground. I mean, that looks like a garage. If they're gonna do maintenance on them vehicles in there, they should put some kind of a barrier somewhere where they could pull them in there and work on them instead of look like we have a garage in the middle of the town.
Feedback. And so, and
No,
Anita?
I think you've done a good job, Joanne, and I don't care to see the screen either. It's not necessary to spend the money.
Any other feedback?
I like the fence. I like the black fence.
Other feedback on the whole concept? My only feedback would be to keep the meeting plan as simple as possible because this is so detailed and there's so many elements of the Boulevard project and options to discuss here as well. And I would encourage Jesse and Gary to please make sure that people understand that this is conceptual, that they don't need to start telling us that they don't like the crosswalks here or whatever, because this is just a drawing at this point. It's an idea only. And Joanne is right. Our comp plan does mandate that we attempt these sort of things. And I will tell you that in the 22-year history of the town trying to attempt things, when these types of drawings hit the press, it's usually killed. And it's killed because a whole lot of hoopla starts coming and people say everyone hates it, and when in fact everyone hasn't even had a chance to listen to what it really is. So I would just encourage people to keep an open mind about this and look at it as a possible moment where the town and the county can come to a resolution of many issues we have at the entrance of our island.
And I just want to state this, to me, this is a unique moment in time.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we have, with the former Ocean Jewel property, which is now town
No, we do not own that.
I know, but control, let's say, town
We don't
control.
control it yet.
And Seafarers and Crescent, we have an opportunity to look at designs that weren't possible before. And it could be we say we don't do this or we don't, but we have this is a moment in time for us to have this discussion, so it's good for us to have that discussion. And
Really
so
important for our citizens to come out and give us your feedback on this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because this is your gateway, this is yours. not-
Absolutely.
We're only 5 people.
Absolutely,
It's gonna affect everybody that lives on this island
That's
or
right.
comes to visit this island.
right. And then the next thing, Megan, the LPA actually didn't know about the January 17th until their meeting on Tuesday, I think it was, I went there. And so that January 17th LPA meeting does not work for the chair, the vice chair, whatever. So they would like to reschedule their joint meeting.
That makes me very glad because I was having to cancel the Mound House event. I was one of the scheduled speakers and I would really like to participate in that. So I think that's
and we'd
fantastic.
like
To
to do
piggyback
this
off
on
of that, though, the 17th is also, that's our new special magistrate, her first hearing is on the 17th with the new attorney, everything, and now they have to go upstairs because of this. I would like to change the 17th the day before or after.
Right. Now, I have some dates that they can't do it. So we can talk about dates that work for us. And they can't do the afternoon of the 23rd on through the 25th, and they cannot do the very end of the month, the 29th through the 31st. To me, the LPA is a priority, and we'd like to schedule this ASAP,
Can they
obviously.
do it the day before or after the 17th?
There was nobody that said that wasn't possible.
Is there any reason
Michelle, what's in the town schedule?
15th
Let's
or
say
the
this-
the day before, the day after the 17th?
That would be the 16th, it's the day
16th
before.
Or the 18th.
And
I have
I'm
an
looking-
MPO the 18th, but I mean,
Let's look at the
14th
16th.
is the cell cap strategy.
Okay, and
no, the 5th, it would be the 16th.
16th is the Wednesday, and I'm going to miss my dentist cleaning, but that's okay. Wednesday doesn't work?
I will not be here on Wednesday.
Michelle,
Okay.
when's the next meeting of the LPA?
Oh, traveling that all over it. Never mind, the day right before, and would you like to come forward from the LPA, please? Is that all
12th.
right?
February
The 12th?
February 12th.
Madam Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Since the entire LPA will be here on the 12th anyway, if that's a convenient day for the council, we could set it up so that after their LPA meeting, you can have that joint meeting.
That would work. Now, Joanne, you were asking to do it sometime in January, so we gave you the 23rd to 24th, 25th that we could.
Oh,
I
all
can do
right.
it we can do it then.
Oh, yes, okay, yes, you're right, the morning of the 23rd, I'm sorry, the afternoon of the 23rd through the 25th, they can also, so,
And the 24th, we have Bay Oaks at 9 and Cellcab at 3.
I can't be here that day at all.
and then the 25th, Friday the 25th?
I have nothing on the town's calendar for the 25th.
Is there a reason that we can't take Roger's suggestion?
Is it going, I just wouldn't want to keep, you guys have a long agenda that day, will it be too much to do your regular?
We pushed quite a bit to that agenda.
So I wouldn't want to overload you guys with like your
Yeah.
normal agenda and then sit through. That's why I think it'd be better to do it special by just,
And if anything comes up in that session, we have that meeting to work on it too as well. From if we did something late January.
Does the
I think
town?
the 25th, can,
Does the town or anyone have a problem with Friday, January 25th then? I know it's just more staff, more problems, Roger, but will that work, Friday, the
it's
25th?
necessary.
It's important.
I'm fine with that date.
Okay. 9 a.m.,
Will you check with Jason,
Friday,
just to make sure
January
he can be-
25th?
can be here
Can
real
I ask a
quick?
question? Are we moving the entire meeting of the 17th to that day?
This one's just a joint one. We can discuss our 17th meeting after we
Can
get
we
done
all
with the
discuss
LPA.
it all at once? If we're going to move the 17th council meeting, can we just move it to the 25th?
It's the M&P, not the council meeting. But Roger, what's on that agenda? Because before
Funny
I
you
say
should
yes,
ask.
I want to know what's on the agenda.
Well, it's a collaborative yes, I hope, because
Well, of course, it's a collaborative yes. That's the way we work, but
we
I asked a
usually-
question.
LPA,
What I have shown for the 17th is follow-up discussion about neighborhood parks, follow-up discussion about canal dredging, follow-up discussion about ordinance 1819, which is the LDC Code, Chapter 34, and then we had also, of course, as you well know, the joint session with the
I think
LPA.
that
We need to,
we
so
need to
separate
concentrate,
them.
yeah. I think we need to keep that M&P on the 17th,
can't we-
because those are big topics.
But we got to look at moving the 17th, though, because of the special magistrate. It's booked, you
Oh,
can't
they're
ask the
booked.
public to.
Oh, I see, yes.
We're a town, and you can't ask the public to pick which public hearing they're going to go to.
Right.
So Molly said there was a few hiccups between, it's going to be January and March. We need to fix them both, but she said after that, there's not a problem. For some reason, we didn't have a special magistrate for 2 months, and
Can we move the M&P to Wednesday then?
I can do Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 16th?
well, I can't be here.
Oh, no, we need,
But
we want
no,
everybody,
you
no,
don't
we want
necessarily
everybody
need me.
here. This is like our strategic topic, you know?
I cannot be, I will not be here on the 16th.
Okay,
We have a couple of advisory committees scheduled for the 16th.
okay.
I think what did we decide with Megan, just so she
Are we
doesn't
done?
have to wait?
Megan,
We
Jason seems to remember that Scott was going to have a problem with the 25th. Are you sure he's available that date?
I think it was the following week that we all had problems with, the 27th or 29th.
29th through the 31st, yeah.
I thought he said he was leaving like the 23rd or 24th.
So you have 12 people, on the, you know, a lot of them that still work, that are trying to fit this in. One or two people might not be able to make it. It happens all the time.
Right, which is why I suggested if you have it on their regular meeting date, which they already have in their calendar, assuming the 5 of you are available, they're all likely to be there.
Yeah.
I mean,
You said it
I
might be,
respect the
it
point
might be
about it makes
cumbersome
the
for you
for a long
guys.
day for them,
It could
they're gonna
very
be
well
there.
be with us pushing, if you're not adding any more to our agenda than what we already pushed to our agenda.
Right. That's
the thing, they
We
have a
know they're
long
gonna add
agenda.
stuff. It's just inevitable, you're gonna add stuff.
Only
Well,
one
we're
that
going to
they
have
were.
to be efficient. It's, you run the meeting, LPA runs the meeting with the town council, it's your agenda. So let's put it on February 12th then.
So wait, it's going to be an LPA meeting or MMP?
LPA
How should
then
we do? Shall we start with the town council first at 9 and then your LPA will follow, or what will we do?
What?
I would
If we do it
suggest,
on
What
our
town
date, it would be
council
our
meeting?
day.
I would suggest that the LPA
There's no
have,
town council meeting.
No, I mean, if we do the 12th, it's a joint meeting with the LPA, but the LPA has a meeting afterwards. Are they going to do their LPA stuff first or town council stuff first?
I would suggest that the LPA conduct their meeting
Yes,
and then the joint meeting be held after that.
that was my question.
Okay.
Okay,
So the 12th of February.
February 12th.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a suggested time?
We'll send out a note after we see what the agenda is, and we'll do our best to predict when the
Thank
LPA
you,
meeting will
Roger.
be over.
And then what about the 17th meeting? We're going to have to move that. Not just this one, but in March too. Molly said there's 2 of them that are. I'm sorry. In March? So, well, let's talk about January 17th. What day can you guys switch the MMP to?
Make some suggestions.
I can
don't
do
have a
any day.
problem.
I mean-
Me too.
I can do the 18th.
The 18th? I can do the 18th, but I'll miss my MPO, but that's okay.
I can't do the 16th.
I'll do the 18th.
Oh, I can't.
Or I could do the 15th. No, I can't either.
You know, sometimes you can, I canceled my dentist appointment so that I could go to the legislative hearing next week.
I said I'd cancel
No,
it.
I'm not talking about
Oh,
you.
okay.
I'm just talking about everybody. I mean, sometimes when you look at your agenda, I mean, you took on a responsibility in this town.
Please don't patronize us. We're all adults, Tracy. We understand how
Well,
life
then
works.
we need to, well,
Thank
just
you
sit
very
here
much
for
for
an
that.
hour, sit here for an hour
You're
to
the
try
one
to
that's
figure
doing
it out.
You're running the meeting, Tracy.
I am trying to run the meeting,
Yeah.
but nobody can seem to find a date that they can meet.
Madam Mayor, on the 22nd, right now, we only have 3 items scheduled for the town council meeting,
On the what date, Roger?
January 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to take care of those items and along with your other routine business, public comment, et cetera, you could theoretically have the M&P session after that. I know you don't
That would be
like
my
to do
preference.
that.
I would
I won't be
consolidate
here on
those
the
two.
22nd until noon.
Oh, okay.
So you're missing the town council meeting anyway, but you'd be able to be here for the M&P.
Second?
Yeah, because we already have the town council meeting on the 22nd, and we're just going
How
to
would
add
you-
on
how
the
did you miss
M&P
that?
afterwards.
No, I've got a meeting at between 10 and noon.
So,
Cannot change.
okay, so then we would do the M&P maybe at 1, the town council at 9, M&P at 1?
So
or-
Dennis is going to miss that meeting. We'll do the town council meeting and then the MMP.
I'd be gone for 2 hours.
But the town council meeting's already scheduled, so
Yeah.
that works for
I was
me.
going to bring that up at
I'm fine with that.
Let's do it.
Now, we don't have that discrepancy with 2 public hearings on the 17th.
So if I may, just to recap, the January 17 Town Council Management and Planning Session has been moved to January the 22nd
Correct.
in the afternoon.
Yeah, can you just, have you checked the calendar? We have no problem with that date? There's no other meetings?
I have checked the
Okay,
calendar.
thank you.
Okay, next. we had talked previously, was there supposed to be a variance by resolution for the 5:30 a.m. Times Square trash pickup? Because they're supposed to start February 1st. So maybe for the next meeting, can we have the variance by resolution for that 5:30 a.m. trash pickup? And then the tram benches, do we have any at Seagrape Bay, and that's Bay Street there? Do we have any update on that? If you could pursue that, Roger. And then lastly, the public safety report that they did on 8/18. I guess what our public safety people, let's make sure that that they are here and know about and have a special invitation to be in the audience for our meeting with the county that we're holding, is all I'm saying. Thank you.
Is that all you have?
That's it
Anita,
for
do you have
me.
any council member items?
Yes, I do. I did meet with the street performers to discuss the issues. I'll be meeting with Roger after the meeting to discuss that. That's just informative. I am getting quite a lot of complaints about the Kia Stero parking lot, and just complaints from people who are going to get their hair cut or use one of the businesses there. I guess it's a pretty intense situation. I don't know what we can do about it, but I'm just telling you. The other thing I wanted to bring up was whether or not are we talking about what are we going to do anything about the requests we've had, and I have now had from additional Palermo Street residents about speed bumps on Palermo. Is that going anywhere? Or I happen to have an employee that lives on Palermo, and yesterday I heard she literally stood out in the middle of the street to stop some people because there are some small children. She has grandchildren, so I don't know where people think they're going on Palermo Circle, but evidently it's a bit of an issue. Roger, where were we on that?
Okay, so we are looking at other types of traffic control devices to try to help address that situation. My advice to you is if you open up the Pandora's box of the town installing speed bumps, you will literally have to deal with this case where everyone's going to say, I want one in front of my house because someone's speeding.
Roger,
Could be all over the island.
Could we ask at a minimum that perhaps, at least until there's, some resolution, that there's some additional patrol in that area for, if we could alert the Sheriff's Department about the...
It was discussed with the captain. I will remind him.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Dennis?
While we're on this public safety and street bumps, what are we doing to stop the cars from parking on the corner of Primo Drive next to that hot dog stand?
We are, we're installing a permanent curb there. It's our intention to put up a sign that says no parking, stopping, or standing, video enforcement, and putting a camera there, self-contained camera on a pole there. So if anyone parks there, even if we physically can't get there while they're parked there, we will still recover the recording and issue citations.
We'll get their license plate.
We're going to position the camera as best we can to try to capture 90% of the license plates. I don't know that we'll capture
That's the
them
only way
all,
you'll be
but
able to send them a ticket.
yes.
Are you going to put on your sign that no standing, parking, whatever?
Video enforcement,
Video enforcement, and what's the
24/7.
fine?
And we can put the fine on there too.
Put the fine right on there so that they know that we're not playing around.
We will do that.
Because it is, I get in that area a lot myself, and it is definitely a very
We've
big
tried,
concern.
our approach has always been going from the least severe to the most severe.
I understand.
So we started with signage, didn't work. We put some traffic bumper stopper type of things. That didn't work. That apparently isn't work. So now we're escalating to the next stage.
Just so you're aware, this problem only started back in 2015. For this owner now, the other stands that have been there throughout history never generated cars parking like this. I don't know what's changed over the past 3 or 4 years, but it's been like this, and it's been such a problem. There's been accidents, fender benders, people falling off their bikes because people are trying to go around. And now that the Beach 12 has extended out that, their ramp on the side, you can't, there's no pullover, safety pullover anymore. So it's very dangerous. Yeah, well, there's more. I'm going to talk to Jason because I found some more stuff that I need to go over with you about that. So.
The other thing, like I said, I just mentioned earlier, the January 22nd meeting, I can be here for the beginning of the meeting. I'd have to leave here at 9:45, and I can be back by noon.
You asking for an excused absence? I am okay with that. Anybody else? Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah. Yep, that's it for now.
Okay. My councilmember items. Roger and I will be going to the annual legislative delegation meeting on Tuesday. I went last year for you because you couldn't make it, so I'm going again this year.
Do we have topics for that?
Yep, 500. We're going to ask for $500,000 for our part of the road construction, stormwater and stuff.
Yes, as you recall, last year, we were fortunate to receive a $500,000 grant from the state, and considering the 8,000 or so residents of this town are contributing $60 million to the project, I think that it shows extremely goodwill on the part of the town, and I would think that, from a match standpoint, the state doesn't see very many projects with that percentage match, and hopefully they will continue to help us out.
Okay, and my second one is, at our last council meeting, we talked about that Red Shutter Cottage, and we were looking for ownership of it. Well, during the meeting, I got an email, and we had ended the meeting before I saw it. But I got an email from Charles Metter, who's the attorney for the owner, who is Michael Huffman, who owns that cottage. I have forwarded this to the town manager, but I wanted the council to know that, yes, he does own it, Michael Huffman, and he is okay with donating it. He was approached, and somebody offered, like, he could donate it as a 501c3, get a letter in a form acceptable to his CPA, indicating the value, blah, blah, blah. There's, stipulations. So but yes, we got the title, and we got the real owner of it, and he wants to donate it. So, and I think, are you working with that?
Jason knows about this because I spoke to Jason about it this week. Maybe
Okay.
you too, Roger.
Well, Jason is working on the relocation in terms of meeting the requirements of the town's code. We are not working on the tax write-off potential or for the donation. We're not working on that aspect of it. But in terms of meeting the code for it to be relocated within the limits of the town, we're working with the owner and the, sponsor and the recipient to try to make that happen.
I just want everybody knows that it's good news that we did get the owner with the title that we were looking for.
Do you
so.
mind if I comment on
Sure.
that quickly? I spoke to Russ Carter about this last week, and he had been sick through the holidays, and that delayed it, but he was in the process of scheduling a meeting with Mr. Huffman and everything to make sure this all gets straightened out so that it's ready to roll. So just so you know.
And I just want to send a thank you to Mr. Huffman for doing it. So, the other one, Chapter 6, do we know when that's going to come before us?
Sorry?
Chapter 6, Jason knows, 1 through 15, that was taken out inadvertently.
Oh, you're
Joanne
talking-
sent you some information.
You're talking about the property
Maintenance code.
I saw a document on it. I may have a little vacation fog, but I did see a document about that. I think it's, Jason, do you have an update on that?
This is where like a big flooding issue happened when they took that out.
Well, so remember, there's two different parts. The International Property Maintenance Code
Right.
part of it, which was the kind of the front end of that highlighted section, is one part. The other part dealing with the neighborhood flooding is not part of the International Property Maintenance Code.
Right.
That does have some
But that
things that were
wasn't-
taken out. So we got to address, I don't know if you want to do it together. I think they're really two different issues. As far as the International Property Maintenance Code, Robert's looked at it, and there are some things that could be put in and strengthened locally that are not in the International Property Maintenance Code. So we could look at that as a separate issue. The drainage thing does need to be dealt with, and that's part of, I think, of our MMP in February.
So when I went back, just so that you know, when I went back and looked at it all, when this was done in 2013, when they took out 6.1 through 6.15, and they adopted the International Property Maintenance Code. And then when, at one point, I don't know, I think it was Caro who said that everything that was in 1 through 15 was in the Property Maintenance Code. It's not. And Michelle sent me what Joanne sent you, and when she was on the LPA, she highlighted some stuff. And some reason, even though in the minutes it says that everything the LPA wanted to add in was, it wasn't. And on top of that, there are some things that were missed. There's like other things that are in 6.1 through 6.15 that are not in the Property Maintenance Code.
Right, so neighborhood flooding is entirely under your, whatever you want to do on that, as far as how you want to deal with drainage, especially for these individual lots. And so I think what happened is that whole section was taken out. And then if you remember, you did an amendment in 17, June of 17, that added some of it back in, some different language. And then we did another one this summer to do the 500 square foot exception. In reviewing that, we really do need to, and that's part of, again, in February, I think we'll talk about that, really getting into how drainage works and how sites are supposed to work, and getting feedback from you guys to edit that.
Well,
It really needs to be rewritten.
Should I just give you the other things that are missing?
Yeah, so,
that easiest?
so, what I think what Jason is saying is, to try to get this resolved, although there are two different issues, and yes, you, please do. But we would, like to have reserve some time on the joint meeting with the LPA to discuss specifically those two things.
Okay.
So just putting it back in won't solve the issues that we're having. Let me put it that way. That's why it needs to be.
It's not just the flooding. There's a lot of issues,
Correct.
1 through 15.
But flooding wise.
Because I don't think the council in 2013 meant to, when you read the minutes, I don't think they intended to lose these. It looked, when you read the minutes, they were under the impression that all this stuff was covered, and it's not.
And my suggestion is do it two separate times, two separate issues. And as far as the drainage goes, it's not as simple as just putting back what was in there. What was in there doesn't solve the issues that we're having. And I think it needed, even if it was in there today, we still need to rewrite it and discuss it. Okay.
Right, thank you. Let's see, I have turned in many complaints about the old Topomas. They got a DJ on the back deck facing the golf playing bass music to at least midnight, where the house is shaking. You can hear it. You can hear it in your heart. And it's against the noise ordinance. So how do we stop that? I don't even know, can you do bass from a decimal meter? It's like, doom, the houses are shaking. I don't know what, I actually was walked down to try to follow it, and I found where it was.
So, Madam Mayor, as you, I believe you know that I am not really a fan of the decimal meter system because, even if you get someone there while the noise is going on and you get a reading off the decimal meter, then, when you go to try to prosecute that case, you have to prove that the person was trained in using the decimal meter. You have to prove that the decimal meter was recently certified and maintained and working accurately, and it leads to a whole, a very difficult, I guess, burden of proof, if you will. To try to address the specific situation that you're mentioning, one of the other municipalities I'm familiar with has gone to basically just a very simple thing, and that is if you can hear the noise from X feet away from the property line, it creates a violation. And maybe that's a better way to tackle that specific issue if the council feels that it's a big enough problem that we need to amend the noise code to deal with it. Because I agree with you that, whether it will pick up the bass or not, I'm not that technically knowledgeable about those meters to even know whether it would or it wouldn't.
Let me just tell you something, that when they do that, the animals can't take it. The animals are walking, my dogs walk around, and they're like with their heads down crying, and it's got to stop. They're not, I don't even know why they're out there. They're not supposed to be out there.
Well, if there's consensus of the council to discuss this further at an M&P, we could bring some suggestions
And
forward.
it's the only one, by the way. No, none of the other businesses are doing this. It's just that one.
I'm fine.
Bring it to an M&P? Okay, two of us, yes.
I just ask though, bringing it to an M&P, it is either permitted or not permitted.
I asked that
Well,
question. I'm not getting an answer.
Why do we need to discuss it?
Well, because the problem you have is that this tends to happen after town's hours, which means you're then in a position of asking the sheriff to go enforce it. And as you know, I'm not going to defend how they prioritize and handle their calls. But what I will tell you is, emailing me at 10:30 is not going to solve the problem, and that's what we currently have going on right now.
I think it's just to let the town know. Put it on
Yeah,
record.
so, no, but I'm just saying that, if you agree that it's a problem, I'm telling you right now that our code is not effective in dealing with the problem, so if you agree it's a problem, then I think we need to change the code. If you don't think it's a problem, then the code we have is fine.
If I could just continue, Roger, I don't know if it's a problem or not. I haven't experienced it. Tracy's saying it's a problem, I'll believe her. But could we not do something as simple as, if we know, I'm sure that she can now tell you dates and times of when they're doing this, ask one of our base people or code enforcement people to go there on one of those particular times and cite them.
They're not here at that hour, so now we're talking into whether we want to start extending the hours of the base staff to do enforcement. Again, even if they were to have their hours extended to try to do it after they would typically not be here, then you have the secondary problems that I was mentioning with trying to work enforcement through a decibel meter system.
All right,
Which
then
in
can
my
we-
opinion is a high standard to try
agree.
to make that case.
Can we try something even simpler? Perhaps just sending them a letter saying, we have received several complaints about this noise. If it persists,
I'd be happy to do that. I will tell you that
I spoke with the manager.
the person who we're dealing with by way of the property owner there
care if
doesn't
he's
have
received the
a
Okay.
high appreciation for the town's codes in
I
some
just
cases.
don't know what we get to by sending this to a work session.
Well, I think one of the things is that if you agree that decimal meter is a difficult way to enforce the code, and not that I would necessarily change it during the day, but I would say the decimal meter or some other simplified system, so that if we have to make those cases and we do decide to put the base people working extra hours, that we can actually successfully make a case.
Didn't we at one time have a similar issue with another location, and they volunteered to put in some monitoring systems? I think that was at Nervous Nellies during the day or something.
Yeah, we had a cooperative property owner in that case.
Yeah, that's right.
Most
So-
of them, most of the property owners are cooperative.
Right, so even though this guy may have a problem with the town, I think we ought to formally advise him of this opportunity to self-police, or there's going to be some sort of action taken. We don't know what it might be yet. We may change our rules to say,
We'll be happy to send
Yeah.
them a letter to, official letter letting them know that, we've
And-
had these complaints and asked them to address it, but
and just a second, and then my other point is that you said base works till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So do they not make noise at 9 o'clock and then they crank it up when the base leaves? Is that what we're supposing, or is the noise there at 9 o'clock?
I can only go by the times that are reported to me. I don't really know when it gets louder or doesn't get louder. It may get louder by virtue.
I think they bring it in after dinner, so it's like in the evening to get the evening crowd, so that's probably why. I'm assuming, I don't know
Yeah,
that as
could be,
fact.
I don't know, I've never.
I mean, it doesn't happen, it's not happening every day.
But then again, I mean, if you're at home and it's 9 o'clock and you're hearing it, you're not really paying attention because you're probably cleaning up after dinner and stuff. It's when you go to lay down in bed and you're like, are you kidding me? You know, boom, boom, boom. I mean, we got to remember, commercial intrusion, quality of life for the citizens always has to come first. Yes, sir.
Roger, to Tracy's question earlier, are they permitted to have music outside over there? Do we know that or not?
I don't think it's the point of origin, I think it's the issue of the music traveling.
I understand that, but the question is, are they permitted to have outdoor music
I
on
think,
their property?
I-
That's the question that she asked that I would like
Yeah,
to know
I
as
don't,
well.
I don't, we could check that. I don't think that's, I don't think that's the specific problem. In other words, it's.
I know the
I'll check
problem is
that.
the noise, I understand that. But the point is, if they're not allowed to have the outdoor music, that's where we start, and we don't even have to go any further. Although, I think down the road, I agree with your suggestion to get rid of the decibel meter to some other form that's simpler and a whole lot less expensive and easier to enforce.
Deal with the extreme cases,
Yeah.
in particular.
So,
Not
I mean, that's
necessarily-
something, I think that's something we need to address. But I think the first thing we need to address is, are they permitted to have outdoor music or not?
If I may, Madam Mayor, you all are, the council's talking about a number of different but related issues. And I think that, you know, we can, as staff, work to answer some of your questions. From just what I'm hearing is, it may be that the music is originating from inside the business. If they have it outside, then yes, we can look into
They do have it
whether or not it's a permitted activity. With respect to actually then the second part that you've been discussing, and that the manager has focused his discussion on is enforcement. And you know, generally speaking, the courts and local governments have identified two methods of enforcement of noise regulations. One, which is, for lack of a better description, I'll call the reasonable person standard, which is, you know, auditory, you hear it, you feel it, you document it, and you take enforcement action versus the sound measurement and that you currently have. There is some different case law out there. The appellate court here that governs our lower courts has ruled that those type of regulations have to be carefully drawn, so they're not considered to be overbroad. That the person who is subject to the regulation has to be on reasonable notice of what is the prohibited conduct activities. So, to the extent that you decide and direct us to work on that, then we obviously will tailor regulation that is consistent with the case law, so we're not adopting something that's not legally enforceable. It's then the question of practical enforceability, and I've dealt with both situations, and I understand the shortcomings of both, and certainly there are shortcomings, particularly in measuring bass with a sound meter, and as Roger indicated, it's just like when you get a speeding ticket where the highway patrolman and sheriff's office has used either a LiDAR or a radar gun, and they have to see them. If you ever ask for a hearing, they'll bring in a manual like this with all the records of, you know, I've been properly trained, the equipment has been properly maintained and calibrated, and they submit that all into evidence. And if you haven't done that, and you can't show that, then your case essentially falls apart.
So, just to simplify, I think one of the issues with this particular property, not to get into because there's litigation with it, but when the town procedurally, when you expand your alcohol license outdoors, it goes to the town council and they set conditions. I believe this was done administratively, and we need to relook at that as to why it didn't procedurally follow what we're supposed to do. You know, so that, I think that's part of the problem. The reason that we have public hearings is so that we can put conditions to protect the residential and the neighboring businesses. So, but anyhow, you guys get the gist, and we'll work on that. The next one I have, I may have, I kind of asked Molly about it, but I was in here, and Brad Benson with the Cozy Cafe, but it's not that anymore. I forget the name of his new building, or his new business. He said.
Currently called Mango Ritas.
Mango Ritas, okay. He was in here and he was talking with Chelsea and Patty about having karaoke for years, and then the staff said you can't do it anymore, gave him a 2007 resolution, and then I didn't want to get in, I said hi to Brad and all that, but I didn't want to get in the middle of Chelsea and Brad's conversation, so afterwards I was trying to find out what happened, and they said that the 2007 resolution doesn't allow him to have it, and I said, well, how come he's been having it for so many years and there's not been a problem? And she said.
It's not been a problem as a matter of whose point of view you want to listen to.
So it hasn't been brought to the town's attention, how about that? Nobody's, it hasn't come up, so no one said you have to stop, unless they have, maybe I didn't, maybe I missed that. But anyhow, Molly said that somebody from base happened to hear it, and was like, wow, that's kind of loud out there, so, which made him look into the 07. So I guess he probably didn't know because he had rented it to a different business at the time. But how do you, when someone comes in and they buy a business or they reopen their old business or whatever, do they get these resolutions? Do they know that they're not supposed to be doing these things? Because he seemed very caught off guard that he couldn't do it. Does the council understand what I'm saying? Like so I feel like we need to communicate better, like somehow when we give a use permit to somebody, that they understand you're buying this business or you're taking over this business, and this is what, do we do that?
No.
Shall we do that?
No.
Why?
Because it's the business's responsibility.
Yeah, it's the
Your due
business's
diligence.
responsibility, in my opinion. I think one of the things that,
But when the town ignores enforcing the code for how many years, and then they jump up, and then you wonder why people are like, oh, you're
Have the
heavy
whole
on the
picture,
code.
Tracy. You do not have the whole picture on this one.
If I may.
Yes.
There's no right, no property owner has an entitlement to the preservation of the status quo. So if a local government adopts regulations that ultimately change, modify, prohibit, permit a particular type of activity at a particular location or in a zoning district, the law presumes that the property owner is aware of that. And if there's subsequent administrative action to implement some of those regulations, again, the law presumes that the property owner is aware of that. And the law puts the responsibility on the property owner. Now, we, from a practical standpoint, can assist with that, but you don't want to get in the business of, for practical and liability reasons, in the business of telling someone, yes, this is, because you may miss something. And there's a case that came out of one of the appellate courts here in Florida, actually when I was in law school, so I wrote a paper on it. And bottom line is that a property owner bought a piece of property, went to the county in question and asked them, can I build a gas station and car wash at this property? And he was told by the zoning people that the zoning code allows that. And so that's what the property owner did, submitted application, obtained building permit, and started construction. When the property was about 80–90% done, the next door neighbor came to him and says, you can't have a gas station and a car wash here. That's prohibited. And he goes, no, I checked with the county. And so that the adjacent owner went to the county, says he's not allowed to, that property owner can't do that there. And he said 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when the property was rezoned, a specific prohibition said you cannot have gas station there.
It's up to him to find that.
And it was up to him. And the court said, under those circumstances, that it was the responsibility of the property owner. The government cannot ensure the information out there. It's incumbent upon the property owner and the individuals to identify and verify that information. Because if not, every time something happened, we would essentially be the guarantors of that. And that would put, the courts have agreed that just it's too large a financial responsibility and liability, and the governments are protected from that situation.
So Anita made a comment that there's more to the story, and I believe her because she knows that area. So that's all I need to know. So I don't have to go on about
It's
that.
the battle of noise in Times Square right now, and it has been for several
Oh,
years.
just like the battle of noise down the residential streets. Okay. I figured there, Anita, that's why I'm glad we can talk together like this, because as soon as she said that, that ends in that. Okay, the Parks and Recs, you already told me about that. I'm going to piggyback off something Joanne said. I continue to get complaints about unlicensed parking lots. It's not fair to the ones who went through the correct process, time and expense to be licensed, to have to compete with the illegally operating ones. When we had these illegally operating beach vendors, the beach vendors that were legal came in, and right away, we did something and stopped the illegal beach vendors. And I don't know why it's taken us so long to make these parking lots that are not legal come into compliance. Either stop them or make them come into compliance. You go to some of them that are legal, they're pretty. You look at John Richard, you look at Dave's, you look at Primo's. I mean, they've all got the fencing and the landscaping, and that's what we want our town to look like. These other fly-by-night ones that are just trying to make $20 an hour per car per day, you know, it's not fair. When these other people, this is how they make their living, this is their business, and they've done everything right. And they shouldn't have to keep calling us and complaining that they're losing business because unlicensed vendors are out there. That's just not right.
Who are the unlicensed vendors?
Well, the ones that I'm hearing would be Helmut Plaza, would be Kia Stereo is one of them, but I also hear that people can't park to go to the stores because all the spaces are taken up by paid parking. The Sunoco station, and behind the cotton shop. I'm trying to think, huh?
Still the goods?
The goods is one, but Molly has there's a case on that one.
There's also
I'm just
one
going
that I
by the
seen-
complaints that I get too.
So you can-
There's
yeah.
also one that I seen the other day, had big paid parking out there. You know where the Heavenly Biscuit is? There's a T-shirt shop in front of that. Big sign out there, parking. And there was somebody out there collecting money and directing traffic in there.
So,
'Cause it's not just for the businesses that are paid parking lots. These are vendors, and this is how they make their money. But it also, the aesthetics of the town. We deserve to have a beautiful town.
so there's several issues associated with this. One is, of course, that we could always do a better job enforcement on anything. Pick a subject, we could always do a better job. That being said, there are things that council could consider to, A, make it help us be more effective in this area,
How can we help?
okay? I'd like to get with the staff and bring that back to you. I have a couple ideas, I'm sure they do too, based on their experience of dealing with these issues. And we could bring you a list of things for your consideration to perhaps add to the code at an upcoming M&P, if that's okay. And
I think one of the reasons they did away with temporary parking lots years ago is because it wasn't the same reason. I mean, they looked trashy, they didn't keep them up, and it was competing with the people that
Right,
were.
but I guess the point is that, as you know, that if someone, so let's just say we catch XYZ, we happen to have enforcement, we happen to catch property XYZ, they get a ticket, it's $100. Well, that may be, say, that's the cost of doing business. So, you know, one of the things we have to look at is, well, like, when we go there and we catch you, now we can write you tickets for 3 or 4 different things. Not being registered with the town as a parking lot, not having an appropriate sign, blah, blah, you know, so now the person is getting 5 tickets when we catch them. And that might be the financial tip the scale so that they realize that it's not a cost of doing business when they get caught by the town. So those are some of the things we want to explore.
But there's also the avenue of, it's a public safety issue because you have to have a parking plan for ingress and egress, and it's safety, and if that can be an immediate stop work order, right, or stop, you know.
Well, we
Stop
can't,
the
we
use.
can't practically stop the person, that's the problem. We can issue them a ticket, but we can't, we can't block their ingress and egress. Our
I'm not saying block it, I'm saying when they block their own, that's now a
well, I
public safety
think,
issue.
it is, but I think, as I said, we can always do a better job of enforcement with bees. We need to look at the code so that when we do catch them, that there's a multitude of penalties so that it's not economically worth it for them to absorb the ticket.
We need to get on that. It's just not fair to the people who are doing
Well,
business
with
the
the,
right
with the
way.
M&P being moved, we'll see if we can get something as an add-on for that.
Thank you. I just want to let everybody know that the planner for Tops called. They're looking at, everybody wants to know what they're doing with Tops, and they're talking about a 40-unit hotel with commercial on the bottom. But if anybody's interested, they're going to present at a board cab meeting. They're hoping if Betty Simpson and Greg Stewart can get their dates together. And I'm not sure, so check the agenda, because if it's on the agenda, then because I know a lot of people want to know what's going on, he'll be able to present and the public can hear for the first time.
I believe they finally, everyone has the same date in their calendar book, so it finally got to that point, and I believe that they are going to present as the last.
And that would be the 21st?
24th.
Can you just quickly state why they would present to Board Cab?
They're presenting to Board Cab because they want to provide some public benefit to Bay Oaks and the town to get some extra units, and this is all conceptual, but, for the hotel, and they want to be a good partner with Bay Oaks, maybe help with, whatever they can do to help Bay Oaks, but they want to benefit out of it too, obviously. So it's a way for them to talk to the Board Cab and say, what is it that you need? What can we do to help you? And then come back to the town and say, hey, we can help you with this. So
It's the beginning of negotiations.
it's the beginning of negotiations, so. And who better to begin it with than Betty Simpson? So anyhow, I just want to let the public know in case they wanted to come, if indeed for sure that they got their dates worked out and they can both make it.
I believe everyone knows it's on the 24th, I believe.
No, but I'm
Yeah,
not
I
sure if
believe-
Greg can make it.
I think he's trying. I don't know that he's definitely.
Okay,
I believe he's
and
trying.
we talked about the M&P, and so one other issue is this private owner of the canal behind Tops. So as you saw, we had all these emails going on, and I'm not sure, is the guy emailing Jason, is he the owner or is he just somebody? Just the public?
So I think we need to be careful about this because we have an issue among property owners.
Okay,
And we want to be factual with all the parties, but we don't want to be the hammer for one party versus the other party. We just want to get the facts out there as we know them. So if we get inquiries, we do our best to factually answer those. But we really don't necessarily want to get between two property owners who have a property dispute.
so when we get calls, I don't know if they've gotten any, the rest of council, but I have gotten calls and emails, as the staff knows, about this issue, because somebody does own that canal, and there's docks and boathouses in there.
But he says.
So what does a council member do? Do we say this is a civil issue? Do we hand it to you? What does a council member do
So
when they get that call?
So, just to bring everyone on board, what we've done is, we've established that there's, to our knowledge, there's no permit for those boathouses. But the fact of the matter is, through aerial photography, they've been there for umpteen years before the town was formed, and many years before that. There was a question of whether they made a public records request for permits, and there were no permits. But then the person said, well, then the staff found authorization. Well, they didn't find authorization, they just found the fact that there was this historical aerial photography showing they've been there for years, so therefore they're de facto grandfathered in until they need to be maintained or reconstructed, in which case a permit would be required. But all that being said, it really is an issue between two private property owners.
What's the answer for, because the other council may start getting calls and emails too?
I've had calls about this for a long time.
So
and
what do you tell them?
It's not my issue. It's not a town issue.
Do you tell when they call, this is not a town issue?
Yeah.
So just tell them it's
I
not.
found out about it, and I found out about it from a realtor who was selling a property there. So, we're not involved with that.
So just tell them it's not a town issue?
In my opinion, it's not. The boathouses that are there because they were.
More than just that, it's somebody's laying claim to the canal, which I looked it up, and
Well-
it looks like he owns it, but
But that's an issue for him, so just like anybody who would have a trespass on their property. So if your neighbor built into your property, built something into your property, then it's an issue between two property owners to resolve. The fact that the town issued or didn't issue a permit doesn't change the fact that someone encroached into your property.
Civil matter.
Yeah, I can tell you that my personal experience as a government attorney, the worst case scenario that I've been in, because this happens, I don't want to say regularly, but it's not unique to this government and this body. I'm aware of one government where the council authorized legal staff to file a declaratory judgment and force the property owners, the disputing property owners, to go into court and argue because we said we don't know who to issue a permit to. One wanted a demolition permit and one wanted a building permit. And we said, court, we don't know who to issue the permit to, but they won't sue each other, so we're forcing them to come to court now and resolve the issue before the court, and ultimately they settled.
so so if we get more of these, because I have a feeling we're going to get more of this, so I just,
Civil matter.
should I just like forward everything to you, just and let it, just?
I mean, I would just tell the person.
I hate to
civil
ignore
matter-
people.
The civil matter, and to the extent that there are records in the town, they're welcome to records as under a public document regulation.
Right, thank you.
Inform them it's a civil matter.
Okay. And my last one was, do we need to have a special session with the attorneys and the new attorneys and stuff, and also to get updated on stuff that's going on? I get questions on a daily basis about those two houses.
Well, in answer to the question, maybe, and I know. I certainly can provide you all, prior to the next meeting, with a summary of what outstanding litigation is out there, as well as the status of it procedurally. In many instances, as far as I've identified, I want to say majority, not all of them, of the cases are actually being handled by outside counsel assigned by the League of Cities. And I've already been in communication with those attorneys because I have a past working relationship with them. I've known them for about 20 years. To give me updates and tell me the status of matters. So I also will get together with a previous town attorney to supplement that information that they provided to me to make sure that it's complete and provide you with a confidential report and sit down and talk to you all about each one of those. And if it's then the feedback I get from you all individually that an executive session or shade meeting, as it's called, is needed, then I'll ask for one and we can sit down and talk about it. But for the most part, you have to keep in mind that the executive session or shade meeting are very narrow in scope. So we can't just have it just to talk about the case. There has to be related to litigation strategy, litigation expenses, settlement offers. But I certainly can keep you all and update each and every one of you individually, and will do so prior to the next council meeting. And then we talked about this at the last meeting, that we also will determine if there's, how we transition those items. I'm already getting up to speed on the day-to-day issues that we've been discussing about here. The question that I will sit down and have sat down already with the Peterson Law Group is how we transition some of that litigation and what role they will have. Obviously, the determination if outside counsel is handling a fair amount of those, then that's who the interaction would be with as we move forward.
to let us know. Or
Yes,
unless
I will.
anybody here has any questions that you think we need to, no? Okay, that's all I have today. Oh, yep, and you guys jump on, whatever you need.
Yeah, just one thing I forgot. Roger, are we doing any kind of enforcement? I know we've talked to the sheriff's office, and I have as well, about the bikes on the sidewalks. Not just the electric bikes on the sidewalks, but I believe ordinance calls for a warning device and a light. And has anybody talked to any of these places that rent the bikes out to tell them they need to put the lights and horns on there? Because I see them all over the place. Most of them don't have any. If you find one with a light on it or a warning device, you're lucky. So I'm just wondering, where are we in the stage of trying to enforce this?
My understanding is that the staff has gone to all the bicycle shops and shared the new ordinance with them to make them aware of it. Just before the end of the year, the mayor and I met with the captain, and we discussed all the council public safety concerns that affect the service provided to us by LCSO, including the issue of the bicycles. And I will have to email the sheriff about the speeding on the street that was discussed earlier, and I'll mention that again.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make it more difficult for these rental businesses to business, but I think it's a safety issue. And every bike should at least have a warning device on it.
So
Because
you
they're
said
riding
these-
on the sidewalks, which legally they can do, but they're coming up on people or families in front of them that don't even see them coming. And then you're trying to go this way and that way. They should at least have something to warn somebody they're coming up behind them.
Bruce had said that months ago.
And the same with the lights. I mean, at night, they're required by law. That's not our law, that's law. You have to have a light on, and most of them don't. And most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are for the rental companies.
Right. Well,
So
we've discussed this in the
It's an
past.
education matter. We need to educate people, they need to have these things.
Right. We'll redouble our efforts.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Before we close, I just want to
It's
say,
2 times nothing. No, I'm kidding.
on. What did you say?
It was a little side joke.
Okay. On our break, I got a phone call from the sheriff captain, and just before the news comes out and it gets crazy, there was an incident next door. So the sheriff's captain, Matt, said that, there was an altercation over here by Tops. Somebody got their neck sliced. He's going to be okay. So you might hear this awful story in the news, but the guy's going to be okay. And they're looking for the other guy, and he said that the guy that did the cutting, but he said they're pretty sure that it's an isolated incident, that there's not like a hacker out on the loose. So I just didn't want, if the news put out there that this happened, that the sheriff said that it's isolated. Yes.
If I may, I'm sorry, and I probably should have mentioned this during the attorney report, and I apologize, but I do want to, because I saw an email and the discussion we just had about, that you inquired about, triggered that in my mind, and I apologize for that. If there's a question regarding town attorney, I am your town attorney, effective of the date that you all approved it. I signed the agreement. And so any inquiries, legal related, you direct them to me. I believe that the system is being set up internally, that to the extent that there's a general email group, it now is directed to my email address, and I will receive those emails that are sent out to that group. But individually, please forward them to me. And the idea here is for me to, as quickly as possible, which I'm already in the process, assume all responsibilities, so we minimize the overlap. I very recently had this similar situation about 6-7 months ago in another municipality that I mentioned to you all before, very small. doesn't have as many needs, but within a week, in fact, my predecessor was, you know, he was ready to move on anyway, and he's like, you know, we met, we talked about the issues that were pending, and he said, "Good luck, John." And I've known him for years, and that's the last time I've had any discussions with him with regard to that government's legal issues. And so that's the intent, and conveying to you that's exactly what I intend on with the town, and we'll keep you posted and updated on that. And to the extent that you have any questions, I can answer them.
And Michelle, as soon as he has an FMB.gov email address, you will let the town council know?
I'd be happy to keep the council abreast of
Thank you.
his email address.
Yep, go ahead.
I just want to bring up to the rest of the council, I don't know whether any of you have received any of these things or not, but I got an email from another council member that said they had something they needed me to do, or this, that, or the other thing. And it just wasn't, and it came from a council member's email. Okay, and it was not legitimate, because before I even did anything with it, I called that council member and said, "Did you send this?" And they said no. So I forwarded it to John and Roger. So I just want you all to be aware that if you get something, take a look at it, even though it's from another council member, because it may not be a legitimate email, so.
When you clicked on it, then it came up with a different email.
Correct. If you hit the reply, it'll then show, and we've actually had that spoofed internally in our law office, and actually a couple of young associates, because it asked them to actually go out and spend like $1,000 because the email came from our managing partner, and they next morning showed up and said, "Well, here's the information you asked for," and the response is, "What?" And those individuals, like, collectively were out of like $12,000. So,
Not just that,
so
it
be
could
careful.
be a virus or something that's in there, and if you just click to open it, you're contaminated. So all I'm saying is, it's happened to me already, so just be aware of it. You know, if you get something that looks
Happened to
even
you.
a slight,
Happened to me, I turned it to. yeah.
And I refuse to go cut your grass.
What'd you say? You refused to look at my what?
Go cut your grass.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Go cut my grass.
He's just joking.
Oh.
It's a joke.
At first I thought he said